Reifenhardt's morning routine is pretty wild. It involves getting tied to a tree and then beaten senseless. And this happens every single day. No cap. This isn't the kind of glow-up training your average Manhwa protagonist signs up for. The poor dude even tried to make a run for it, but his master would catch him every time. His teacher was convinced this was the only way. You know, to get absolutely shredded like him. To understand how Reifenhardt ended up with this complete lunatic who's obsessed with nothing but the grind and building muscle, we've got to take it back to the beginning, in a world where humans despise monsters. Reifenhardt was originally a mage framed as the incarnation of evil, who commanded entire armies of monsters. Or that's the story the humans were peddling anyway. In reality, he was low-key one of the kindest souls in the entire world. He was a firm believer that monsters had a right to exist too. From his point of view, humans were the real evil enslaving and taking advantage of other species for their own gain. Fed up, he ditched human society to live among other beings. His bond with them only became stronger, and through his leadership he united all sorts of races: trolls, dwarves, orcs, and so many more. With their power combined, he didn't just become the most cracked mage in history. Able to wield 10th circle magic, he also built an entire empire where these races could live without fear of persecution. The Antari Empire. But humans just couldn't handle seeing monsters thriving and claiming more territory. So, naturally, they ignited a war to try and force them back into the shadows. It was an absolute catastrophe, with a river of blood flowing on both sides. Humanity's 5 so-called greatest heroes murdered Reifenhardt's most loyal generals, and even went as low as to kill his lover, an elf named Cyrus. And now, the same squad of heroes has shown up to take down Reifenhardt too. But at this point, Reifenhardt had reached his limit. With his closest friends dead, he had zero reason to hold anything back, and fully embraced being the Demon King that humans had painted him as. He absolutely demolished 4 of their heroes at once, leaving only the martial king Tesran in his path. Tesran was a massive unit built like a titan. This musclehead had so much raw power that a single hit from him turned every bone in Reifenhardt's head to dust. Reifenhardt knew instantly, Isaurm. There was no winning a head-on fight against this gigachad. So, he pulled out his ace in the hole, his regression magic. With his 10th circle power, he tried to send himself back in time, promising to reclaim everything he had lost. But Tesran interfered right at the end, and totally botched the spell. Reifenhardt still managed to go back, but instead of returning as the scrawny, bookish mage he once was, he woke up with Tesran's jacked body. Meanwhile, Tesran was also thrown into the past, except he was trapped inside young Reifenhardt's body. And so, Reifenhardt ended up becoming the disciple of the legendary Eek, former King of Fists Gerard Chrome Proteus. Every brutal workout Tesran suffered through to become a gym bro, Reifenhardt now has to endure the exact same thing. One day when his master heads down the mountain to the village, Reifen decides to test out his magic skills. He tries to fire off a spell, but it completely fizzles. He can't even get the most basic spells to work. It makes him wonder if being a wizard is even possible in this new muscular form. All of a sudden, he picks up on an inhuman presence nearby. A green-skinned figure pops out nervously, telling him that if he knows what's good for him, he'll just walk away. Reifen guesses. The kid is a 3 or 4-year-old orc who probably escaped from a gladiator pit. The young orc threatens that if Reifen just plays dumb, he'll let him walk away unharmed. Noticing the kid's attempt at negotiation, Reifen recalls that orcs are a proud race that avoids pointless violence, even in a situation this tense. He switches to the orcish language and asks the boy if he's being hunted. The shocked orc admits he is. The red-headed giant offers to help, telling the kid to put his trust in him. The orc is so moved by hearing his people's language from a human that he already sees him as a brother and can feel the kindness radiating from him. He still warns Reifen that helping him will just land the human in a world of trouble. Based on the orc's formal way of speaking, Reifen suspects he comes from nobility. He insists that he's strong enough to help and then quickly uses magic to create a hiding place for the orc. Before he leaves, the little orc admits it's pretty weird seeing someone so jacked, claimed to be a wizard. Then he offers a heartfelt thank you. A little while later, a group of soldiers shows up whining about having to chase an orc for just a handful of silver. Their leader offers Reifen a gold coin if he's seen anything a clear attempt at a bribe. Reifen just plays it cool and says he hasn't. But then some soldier with eagle eyes clocks the tracks, and Reifen realizes way too late that even magic can't just delete footprints. Still, that doesn't stop him from planting his feet and refusing to let them step 1 foot into the territory of the future King of Fists. The soldiers are seriously ticked off about getting stonewalled by a kid from the sticks, but their leader tells them not to sleep on him. There are more than 10 of them, but something about this redhead is low-key unsettling even after they've clocked his solid build. The grunts just shrug him off as some punk and tell him to get lost, and that's when Rifen's entire aura just ignites. He calmly warns them his fists aren't just for show, they're lethal weapons. He says a single punch would probably unalive most of them, so the kindest thing to do is use a weapon instead as he picks up a heavy club. He's totally fired up, promising them that they'll at least survive the beatdown he's about to deliver with this thing. Even though Jim Unbreakable is all about that unarmed life, they still make sure you know how to handle some hardware. Just this act alone has the soldiers shook, asking if this kid really has the nerve to challenge them, just because he knows a few moves. But the second the fight kicks off, Rifen starts absolutely demolishing them with zero effort. He's just tossing dudes left and right. So the rest of them try to dogpile him to take the brat down completely clueless that these club techniques aren't for fighting. Nah, they're for brutally conditioning disciples and forging them into absolute monsters on the battlefield. In the middle of the chaos, Rifen clocks their sword style and figures they're probably mercs. Using the cudgel, he unleashes a storm of non-stop attacks. These moves are designed to hit literally every part of the body, and when one guy tries to sneak him from behind his sword, just crumples on impact. The dude is left screaming his head off that no human is supposed to be this damn tough. But that's the genius of the cudgel style. It never actually kills you. Sure, your joints get shattered and your bones get cracked, but hey, you get to live. In the end, there's only one soldier left on his feet trembling, as he asks who the hell Rifen is, but our redhead just keeps on swinging. He reminds the guy that all his buddies are already on the ground, so it's only right that he goes down and joins them. When it's all said and done, the battered mercenaries actually thank him for not sending them to the grave. Rifen, though, might have enjoyed that brawl, a little too much accidentally channeling the hardcore teachings of Jim Unbreakable. Afterwards, the young orc gives Rifen his thanks, swearing he'll never forget what happened and will one day repay the favor. Rifen tells him a warrior shouldn't be bowing his head so easily, but the orc now looks at him as a true mentor. And that's a big deal. In orc culture, that kind of bond is as serious as a knight's oath of loyalty to their king. When the orc asks for his name, our MC introduces himself as Rifen Hearthwald and asks what the orc plans to do now. The young orc confesses he'd much rather die free and wandering than ever go back to being a slave. He wants to carve out a place for himself somewhere on this massive continent. To give him a hand, Rifen suggests he head for the Land of Trials. It's in the Rocket Mountains, home to the hidden Blue Bear tribe. Before they split, he finds out the orc's name. Turns out he's the green orc Tathid, son of Crota, and the wielder of Lat's axe. That name Tathid rings a bell for Rifen. He's the legendary orc who becomes one of the 4 warrior kings. He's the future chief of the Blue Bear tribe, and eventually the head chief of all orcs in existence. Rifen starts to wonder if the original Tesseron might have actually met him at some point. For now, though, he just chills. He's pretty amused that fate just had him save a future legend, and feels a weird kind of bond forming. Staring out over the mountains, Rifen thinks about Tathid, Skirus, Mashalin, and Allport. He quietly hopes he'll get to see all of them again one day. Fast forward 6 months after meeting Tathid, and Grandpa Fist blasts Rifen with a massive energy burst. But he's totally shocked when our demon lord just tanks it with a spiral guard. The old man just throws his head back and laughs, completely impressed. He remembers back when the kid kept insisting his name was Rifen Hearthwald. Back then, he seriously thought all the beatings had finally knocked a screw loose in the kid's head. Rifen's confused why the old geezer is bringing up something from 6 years ago, when Gerard suddenly realizes a whole 10 years have passed since they started training. Rifen's gotten way stronger, but the old man still complains that he's only 190 centimeters, which is basically short king status by Jim Unbreakable standards. I mean, come on. The first 3 kings, Valkenshut, Calbrain, and Rostal, were all over 2 meters tall. So Grandpa gets right in his face and asks if Rifen's even been doing his breathing exercises right. Thinking back, Rifen remembers in his past life he was a towering 2.4 meters tall. Even though Rifen insists it's just how he's built, he's got a point. But on the inside, he's losing his mind that this old man really thinks a breathing trick is going to make him taller. Gerard just shrugs. He says size doesn't really matter, as long as the kid is powerful and tough. For the final test, Rifen gets into his stance. He then unleashes a 4-stack Calamity Horn, launching himself forward like a cannonball and turning a solid rock wall into nothing but dust and pebbles. The old man just busts out laughing, completely certain that nobody is going to be beating this kid anytime soon. After what feels like an eternity, Rifen finally hits the 4th stack, and bruh, the relief is real. Just then, Gerard drops the news he's been dying to hear. He announces it's time for Rifen to finally leave the nest. Then completely out of the blue, Gerard hits him with his full government name, Rifen Hearth, and basically says to go live his best life. He doesn't care if Rifen becomes a hero or a villain, as long as Rifen is the one calling the shots. That freedom, he explains, is the ultimate reward for surviving the absolute hell he's been through for years. Gerard then throws it back to some wisdom he got 60 years ago from the legend himself. Master Rostal, the third king of fists, laying down 3 golden rules to live by. Rule number 1, get that bag, but don't you dare do it by being shady. Rifen's like, hold up, didn't you just say being a villain was on the table? Gerard just laughs and clarifies that he needs to be a villain with some class. You know, one with a bit of dignity. Second rule, always back up those who've been wronged, because that's how you earn real respect. But he drops a truth bomb. Just because someone's weak doesn't mean they're in the right. Since Rifen is built different and stronger than almost everyone, he'll have to use his head to judge situations carefully. The third and most important rule of all, the legacy of Jim Unbreakable cannot be allowed to just fade away. Rifen has to pass on his skills to a student. It doesn't have to be some chosen one, just someone he vibes with, a person he absolutely can't let slip through his fingers. After the life lessons, Gerard hands him some starter cash. We're talking about 30 silver coins and a fresh set of clothes. Rifen is low-key shook. This guy is one of the richest men in the entire Vasily kingdom, who owns a freaking mansion in the capital. And this is all he offers. I mean, sure, it's half a year's wages for a regular person, but Rifen was definitely expecting a bigger bag. Gerard quickly explains the situation. Turns out the martial sect has a fixed graduation fund, and back in his day it was only 25 coins. But then he casually mentions he left a little extra gift for Rifen. It's stashed away somewhere in the Setlad Mountains. He gives Rifen a map with the location clearly marked before they finally part ways. The fact that he's actually free feels totally surreal until a massive energy blast lights up the sky. It's Grandpa Fist's over-the-top way of saying goodbye. It's a final message telling him to stay strong as the heir to this legendary power. No-cap Rifen doesn't even think twice. He absolutely bolts down the mountain at top speed. Elsewhere, a villager is trying to tell his chief to just let it go. But the old dude is standing his ground, demanding proper payment from a noble and his knight. These guys just ate a ton of their food, and the arrogant noble just calls them peasants and flicks a single gold coin at them. He's all smug, acting like they've never seen gold before. The chief with zero chill calmly states that it's nowhere near enough. This sets the noble off, and he straight up punches the old man. The guy screams that a knight knows market prices better than some backwater villagers, and that's when it becomes crystal clear. These so-called knights are just a bunch of thugs pretending to be legit. They waltzed into the village, ate everything in sight, and are now trying to settle the bill with a single coin. They're completely disrespecting all the effort and actual cost of the food. Right then, a dude named Lord Stephen shows up and asks his man Edward what the problem is. Rocking a smile that could freeze hell over, he calls the villagers scum. He warns his man not to waste an ounce of mercy on commoners who don't know their place. Suddenly, we cut to Rifen now, going by Griffin Hart, waking up in bed with an elf named Cyrus. He asks this sun-touched elf why she's getting all handsy, and she purrs that his lean body is sharp and elegant. She says he's like a perfectly crafted sword, which honestly hits different, but being stuck in this new body, he feels less like a blade and more like a clumsy rock monster. He actually gets misty-eyed, wishing his master Sirius could forgive him. At least he's taller now. He guesses Sirius has got to be around 70 years old while he's stuck in a 17-year-old's body. He's now in Chrome City, deep in the southern part of the Vasily kingdom, because he knows she's going to be sold off next year. It's at a slave auction in the Chitan kingdom, and part of him wants to just go full beast mode and free her, but that could totally tank his main goal of getting his magic back. Instead, he decides the smarter play is to buy her. The only issue is that elf slaves cost an insane amount of money, and our boy is completely broke. Still, he's got a seriously cracked physique, top-tier skills, and literal memories of the future to bank on. He starts hearing rumors about some hidden ruins. They're supposed to be somewhere along the road to the Chitan kingdom. At the same time, a wizard from Delphi's magic tower is supposed to be looking for some ruins, but this guy Todd is totally ghosting them. Stefan is completely convinced it's the burial spot of the legendary swordsman Sir Claude von Leota Alteon, and it's already been 3 days since Rifen dipped out of Chrome City. Our boy is booking it north along the central road, straight for the Hatton Mountains. Thanks to his cracked stamina, the cold doesn't even bother him, and he remembers how the old martial kings used to just walk around shirtless. Even in the dead of winter, the man had zero chill, and he uses these artificial flashbacks to pull up memories on command. He's using a secret technique that lets him recall specific moments, and bam, he remembers the ancient ruins in the Hatan Range. In his past life, he actually met the mage Todd at Delphia's magic tower, who had already explored those same ruins with the Altians. But Rifen Hearth ain't new to this game. He remembers snagging treasures Todd's crew completely overlooked, and flipping them for over 2,000 gold. Now as he rolls up to Cattle Village, it's exactly the same as he left it. The locals are all whispering about how nobody dares to set foot in the Valley of Death, stressing, because some nobles are demanding a guide. Everyone knows that saying no could end horribly, and with the chief being sick, a guy named Ted who knows the mountains steps up. He immediately regrets volunteering when his wife and kids start crying, but the other villagers just pressure him to get on with it. That's when Ryfin shoves his face against the window like an absolute psycho and happily offers to go instead. Trying to act like some random traveler, Ryfin says he just happened to overhear them, even though he knows it sounds super sketchy. I mean, what kind of stranger just wanders onto someone's property? When they grill him, he just says he knows the area like the back of his hand. He claims he's already been there, but they warn him that no one ever makes it back from the Valley of Death. He just doubles down saying he's been there before, thinking to himself, they're lucky he's here to save one of their own from what's actually a dungeon. This place is a relic from the ancient Silver Age. 50 years back, a dude named Claude from House Altayan awakened his aura at the ripe old age of 45. The guy went on a ton of adventures, and his legendary stories spread all over the Vasily kingdom, but his fame got to his head. He totally overestimated himself and charged into the valley with just one servant by his side. Neither of them was ever seen again, and his demonic sword Altian went with them. That sword was his house's most prized treasure, a symbol passed down for generations. It was lost in that valley, and even after 50 years, people are still hunting for that blade. Stefan von Lepanto, who must be Claude's grandson, is leading the charge. A woman named Relsia is totally fangirling over him, saying he's got the perfect knightly vibe, even without a horse. Meanwhile, the party's muscle-bound giant notices the Slayer elf getting all chummy with Stefan, and past her he spots Silen. Silen's the young priest of the group, and our brawler is seriously doubting if that kid can even cast a proper holy spell. More than anything, he just can't wrap his head around Silen being a dude with a face that pretty, and he's trying to find a way to chat with Todd. But with Todd and Silen deep in conversation, he can't find an opening, which Loki reminds him of how Todd used to talk to him. It takes him back to when he was just a young wizard, but something feels off, making him wonder if Todd has a thing for Silen. Nah, he's pretty sure Todd is too much of a good guy for that. Suddenly, Edward is thanking him for being their guide, but Ryfin just plays it cool like it's no biggie. He says that since the villagers were too terrified to go, he stepped in thinking their fear makes perfect sense. But Edward just scoffs arrogantly. The guy claims there's nothing to sweat about when you've got the kingdom's most courageous knights on your side. Our redhead protagonist is absolutely he's convinced all knights are arrogant pricks and that their whole chivalry thing just breeds a bunch of narcissists. Then a piercing screech rips through the air. A swarm of bizarre creatures ambushes them from the forest. As the monsters charge, Relkia calls them disgusting beasts for daring to attack humans. Apparently, humans are blessed by some god named Stefan immediately orders his knights to form a defensive line, while Todd casts a fire chain spell, causing total chaos as Silen buffs the soldiers with a courage blessing. Even with all that going on, Stefan's skills are no joke. His sword work is way sharper than anyone expected. But to a real fighter like the Iron Fist Ryfin, his form is just sloppy. It's really no surprise. Master Gerard is super proud of his student Jim Unbreakable. Then the rugged-looking guy spots a mob of orcs being chased by the same monsters. He smashes one with a single punch, blowing it into smithereens, all while wondering why nobody gives a crap about the non-humans caught in the crossfire. For the time being, he's just stuck here on the Jacquard Plains. In the original story, Todd wrote, "This is the exact spot where Ted the Guide is supposed to get wiped out with Lord Stephen Altian in charge. Stephen is going absolutely berserk, just hacking away at monsters like a madman. He clearly doesn't care about anyone around him, which is why the guide's death totally tracks, making him a pretty terrible leader in his own right. It's no shocker the guide dies on his watch. In the middle of the chaos, Silen tells Ryfin to hide behind a tree, at least showing some basic human decency. A monster lunges straight for Ryfin, almost taking his eye out and making him scream about whether he has any tears left after all his brutal training. He just throws a blind punch and completely obliterates the creature, leaving the nearby orcs absolutely stunned by the raw power. After the fight, Stephen only bothers to ask Edward if the wizard and the priest are okay, which just pisses Ryfin off. It's like they have zero concern for anyone else's safety. Stefan then declares that his command is the law of the land, and tells everyone to chill out and enjoy the win, using it as a chance to talk to Todd. Our tanky guide walks up to him and thanks him for saving his life, then casually mentions that his buddy Ryfinheart is a wizard over at the Delphi Magic Tower, and asks if the beefcake has ever heard of him. The mage looks shocked that some rugged dude could be homies with Ryfinhearth, then suddenly calls him a sweet and lovely boy, which Loki gives our MC some serious heebie-jeebies. Ryfin asks Todd how his pal is holding up. Todd just says the kid is practicing magic like he always does. But when Ryfin pushes asking if anything weird's been happening, The mage starts totally simping over Reifenhardt's sharp nose, jewel-like eyes, and perfect skin, giving off major creep vibes. Our beefy MC figures, Todd's obsession is all about his body, though it hits different from Grandpa Gerard's. He seriously wants to just deck this guy. But instead, he grits his teeth and asks about Reifenhardt's personality. Todd just admits he couldn't care less about his thoughts, or what he does, basically drooling like a total weirdo. Just then, Seelan runs over asking if Reifen is okay, but he waves it off, telling him to check on the orcs. The high priest starts healing them, even though they say they're fine. The humans just scoff, telling him not to waste his power on creatures like that. Reifen sees how Seelan treats them more like cute pets than actual people, and it clicks. The real problem is how fundamentally jacked up human values are. Getting non-humans equal rights is going to be a massive uphill fight. Stefan then orders their guide to get a move on, which ticks Reifen off, but he weirdly replies in a flat robotic voice, telling them to head for the stream. Stefan can't help but notice how sus that sounds. Hours later, the party's already fought a basilisk, a pack of dire wolves, and more than 20 ogres. They're all wondering how a mountain range this tiny can be crawling with so many monsters. And while the rest of the crew is completely gassed, Reifen is straight up vibing with the view as he leads them forward, intentionally skipping the safe route and giving them zero chance to rest. In his mind, knights are arrogant, priests are stubborn, and wizards are just petty and small-minded. Even in this jacked body, he still claims he's a wizard at heart, and he's just taking them on the fastest possible route. So, no cap, he isn't actually lying or messing with them. Stefan finally gets why Sir Claude bit the dust here. This little mountain is an absolute death trap. Suddenly, one of the knights spots a light up ahead, and Edward shouts that they've found the ancient ruins of Fulton. As they get closer, Todd points to the entrance and says it's clear, but Reifen pulls a fast one and insists on waiting outside. Since he can't possibly get back alone, Stefan has no choice but to agree, saying they have to protect the guide on the return trip, even though it's obvious he never intended to. This makes Reifen see red while Stefan raises his sword, declaring that a great knight is buried inside, and they'll honor him by snagging the demon sword Altheon. As the party charges and Reifen knows it's go time. The ancient ruins of Fulton, now a hotbed for monsters, and the undead were once just a regular military outpost during the Silver Age. But its tech was so next level that it still puts today's stuff to shame. It's been a hot minute since he explored this place. With Ciri, who once told him she could hear a sylph whispering behind these walls. He was convinced it was a secret entrance. Man was acting like a true simp. This absolute Casanova once told Ciri not to blush, promising her a kiss as a prize. And to this day, our rugged hero still gets giddy thinking about that memory. He can't believe he had the guts back then to pull a move like that right in the middle of a danger zone. Now he's faced with a code based on the Libra constellation, mixed with the symbols for Aqua and Terra in reverse. He knows exactly how to crack this thing. But with his magic running on fumes, it's a lot tougher than he remembered. And while his new body is built different, his brain isn't firing on all cylinders like it used to. Still, he gets to work shrugging off his coat. He's not about to ruin something that cost a whole 10 silver coins. So he starts stretching to test out his new rig when suddenly screams echo from inside, leaving him confused. He figured those idiots must have taken a wrong turn, but the sound was coming from a completely different area. That's when he realizes this is actually a secret passage that leads directly to the third basement floor. And since the entrance is wide open, there's definitely an intruder down there, which puts him on edge. Then it hits him. Fulton is still an active military facility, and its magic system will unleash every defense imaginable to wipe out intruders. Back in the day, he and Ciri didn't have to stress about other sections, but with the Altheon party just bumbling around, they could easily set off a trap and send everyone crashing down to the second basement. That would turn the whole situation into pure chaos. Down below, Lord Stephen watches in horror as Sir Thomas gets taken out by one of the traps. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking with heavy footsteps, and a freaking giant skeleton holding a massive axe stomps into view. Stefan immediately knows they're cooked. There's no way he can take on this beast, which is decked out with multiple blades and has an aura that's straight up demonic. Yeah, this thing isn't something a normal human can just beat. Meanwhile, Ceylon starts healing the injured soldiers, who can't stop thanking him, still completely shaken. They're still processing how the floor just collapsed, and almost sent them to an early grave, thanking Todd for saving their hides with his magic. But Todd's like, don't thank me yet, admitting his spell only saved them from the fall, not whatever's coming next. And right on cue, a huge explosion sends the entire front line flying. A horned demon and his whole crew come charging in, sending the soldiers scattering in total panic. But that's when Father Silence steps up to the plate. He raises his glowing mace, pumping holy power directly into the terrified troops. He blesses them all with some much-needed courage. Low-key, he thought their cowering was pretty pathetic, but now they're absolutely surging with energy. They look almost possessed, screaming that they're about to show everyone the true power of the Knights of House Altian. Todd's just standing there, floored by how much juice Ceylon is channeling. He's basically whipped them into a frenzy, turning them into straight-up berserkers. At the same time, Todd starts casting a spell of his own. He yells for them to take back what's theirs, and his magic rips the demon's sword right out of its grasp. Seizing the opening, Relsia leaps in to attack the big bad, but the demon is way too fast, and smacks her so hard she goes flying. She's pretty banged up, but she's hoping she at least created an opening for Master Stefan. Stefan gives her props for her bravery, then charges the head demon, slashing like a blur, a true knight in action. Edward hypes him up, calling their leader a resolute warrior. All the while, Stefan is cursing these foul creatures and yelling at everyone to keep their heads in the game. He reminds them this is the very spot where the mighty knight Claude bit the dust. Before he can finish, flames explode overhead, and another demonic beast crashes the party. It lets out a massive roar and starts blasting fire everywhere, torching soldiers left and right. This so-called knight tells his men not to be afraid. He tells them to man up and remember they're the brave knights of House Altian. The whole battlefield just descends into absolute chaos. But Stefan ain't backing down. He's dead set on not letting these demons win, not while he carries the title of Altian's resolute knight. He charges the flaming beast with a powerful strike, only to get tossed aside and slammed into the ground like a rag doll. He just lies there completely motionless. Father Solon jumps in, blasting it with holy light, but it's not enough to stop the beast. Just as the demon is about to turn Celan into a pancake, a Rifen Hearth appears out of thin air. He sends the monster stumbling back and shields the priest. Then with a single punch, he completely obliterates the beast. Rifen's kinda shocked at how easily it went down. It reminds him of how Tezron used to drop him just like that back in his past life. Deciding he needs to get the wounded to safety, he scoops the injured elf into his arms. But before he can even take a step, an entire army of undead soldiers starts crawling out of the ground. Holding her tight, Rifen plows through the undead horde, carving a path to get them out. That's when the so-called resolute knight finally starts to stir, and his right-hand man Edward is the first to notice. Stefan slowly gets up and just stares at the absolute graveyard of fallen undead. He's like, what the hell happened? And Edward tells him their guide turned out to be a total beast of a fighter. Stefan immediately apologizes, saying he didn't recognize he was in the presence of a nobleman. Our beefcake MC then remembers that Todd knows his younger self from the Magic Tower, so he just gives them the name Rifen. Edward just looks confused. He says he's never heard of any great champion with that name. When they press him, Rifen admits he's not from any noble family, and it finally clicks for Stefan this guy's just a commoner. He totally misread the situation, thinking Rifen was some high-born noble trying to save face. Stefan thanks him for showing up at the last second to clean up the mess they had already handled. He gives a nod to Rifen's skill, but our MC has zero chill and calls him out on his BS. He says it's pretty obvious Stefan has nothing left in the tank. He adds that Stefan is just completely blind to reality. Ouch. That hits a nerve, and the knight totally snaps, demanding respect for House Altian. As Edward quickly tries to de-escalate, Stefan spouts off about how some random vagrant wouldn't know the first thing about proper etiquette. After cooling his jets, Stefan asks Rifen who his master was, but our guy just brushes the question off. He just claims he picked things up here and there. Internally, though, he's remembering how Grandpa Fist taught him a seriously powerful technique. But with Master Gerard's reputation known all over the continent, Rifen can't risk anyone connecting the dots. He definitely can't let that man find out where he is. Stefan's still struggling to believe that some random dude with no formal training could be this cracked. Rifen just tells him to worry about the injured instead. Edward can't help but notice how casually this guy bosses people around. He's got this natural air of command, like he's some high-ranking noble who's used to people following his orders, and he doesn't even realize it. Edward starts thinking this dude acts more like royalty from some other kingdom. He doesn't even seem to notice the age difference, because Rifen talks to Stefan like an old veteran schooling a rookie, which just makes him even more of a wild card when out of nowhere, Celan slides in and asks Rifen just how tall he is. The priest is low-key, thirsting over this absolute beefcake, who he finds out is a towering 192 centimeters. Rifen, however, admits he has no clue what his exact weight is, and when Celan starts asking about his training, he just brushes it off, saying he got beat up a lot, ate a ton, and lifted some seriously heavy stuff. He's totally weirded out by how chummy Celan is acting all of a sudden, but Phil Merricks explains the deal. It's basically an unwritten rule that true fighters never spill the beans on their actual training methods. Rifen is already aware of the priest's past. After his parents died, he was raised in the Philinance Order's orphanage. Because of his delicate build and pretty face, he was a prime target for bullies. And that's exactly why he started craving all the things he didn't have. He wanted a rock-solid body, a booming laugh, and a deep voice. At one point, my guy even wanted to become a monk. He figured he could prove his faith through sheer physical power, but reality didn't really vibe with his plan as he never got any taller and his voice stayed high. Plus his hair grew way too fast, and the more he tried to get swole, the more his holy power just went into overdrive. It kept healing his sore muscles, which kicked off this weird obsession with rugged dudes completely creeping Rifen out. Rifen tries to dip and scout the exit, but the pretty boy is dead set on tagging along, so Rifen tells him to stick with the injured soldiers instead. You know, just in case more enemies pop up, which makes Salon pout big time. Stefan decides to go with Rifen, telling Relcha to hang back and help out. On their way, Sir Absolutely Useless starts whining about needing help from this giant boulder of a man. He's clearly just salty that Rifen is volunteering to take the lead without caring about rank, desperate to be the hero. Stefan is itching for a fight with another demon to show off, hoping to get some props from the tank, but while he's off in La La Land, Rifen just clocks him and knocks him out cold as a squad of undead soldiers attacks. This absolute unit of a man takes them all down without breaking a sweat. He makes it look like a total walk in the park, before heading off to snag some treasure, finally arriving at the main hotspot. He carefully scours the area, aiming to pocket at least 50 gold coins worth of Silver Age loot, and after a few minutes, he finds the infinite sack. It's a magical bag that can literally hold 10 times its own size. From his memories of the future, he knows there's another one right next to it, and this one holds the Celestial Furnace. It also contains the Dagger of Recall and the Sapphire of Magic Power. Bruh is absolutely stoked to find such a legendary tier item, and just as Stefan finally comes to, Rifen straight up blames the undead for knocking him out. In a single blow no less, Lord Ego is fuming that his big moment got wrecked, but Rifen is already scheming on how to put him back to sleep. The so-called lowly knight ends up getting knocked unconscious 3 more times, while our boy Rifen loots the ruins, hoping he didn't give the noble a concussion. When Stefan finally manages to stay awake, he's completely baffled since he got knocked out even while being on high alert. He starts thinking he'll need some recovery potions later. Meanwhile, Rifen has finished maxing out the storage bag and is already planning to come back for more loot after he makes sure the exits are secure. As they're guiding the rest of the survivors out, Ceylon starts questioning Rifen about his commoner status. He asks if it's weird for someone of his standing to be so freaking skilled, but Rifen just explains that it's his tone that makes people feel like they're beneath him. He never thought his straightforward way of talking would hit a 40-year-old dude like Edward the same way it hits Lord Ego. But then our guy remembers he's only 22, so he decides to dial it back a bit and apologizes for being so blunt. He claims he just doesn't get out and meet a lot of new people. In the very next room, the group bumps into a brand new demonic enemy. It's the Grill Beast, a monster Rifen has zero memory of from his past life. Stefan just assumes it's the guardian of the area. But our MC knows they don't stand a ghost of a chance against it with their current power levels and immediately tells everyone to fall back. That's when they see the demon sword. Altan is clutched in the demon's hand, and Edward agrees they should retreat and come back with a bigger squad. But the brainless knight is not about to let some legendary sword get corrupted. No cap, he's determined to get it back no matter what. He's willing to run straight into certain death to get his hands on it. He charges his soldiers forward while the Iron Fist just calls him a reckless idiot under his breath. Turns out a dimensional rift is what shattered these ruins from the Silver Age in the first place. But the ruins had a self-repair system that patched the holes by just sucking in anything and everything nearby. That's how this creature from another dimension got absorbed into the ruins' defense system, becoming what everyone now calls a dungeon guardian. The demonic guardian is roaring at the soldiers now, but the truth is these things were living peacefully before the ruins just yanked them from their homes, and basically enslaves them. The second a creature links with the system, its power level skyrockets, and Rifen is all too aware of this. The demon that took down Sir Claude was an aura user, so if this dungeon guardian is even beefier than Tigrel, we're talking about a whole different league of monster. But Lord Ego just brushes it off, telling his crew not to sweat a monster that's literally chained to the wall. Our boy tries to warn these clowns that they'll get smoked if they rush in, but Edward just claps back that a drifter like him wouldn't get it. He claims some things are worth dying for, but Rifen's just thinking these idiots couldn't even scratch Tigrel, and now they think they can take on the Grill Beast. Meanwhile, Pretty Boy is busy pumping the soldiers full of holy power, hyping them up. It's a total suicide mission, and the soldiers just charge in like lemmings off a cliff, only to get tossed aside like yesterday's garbage. Just like our MC called it, they're nothing more than walking meat shields being served up for the slaughter. But Sir Useless keeps screaming about courage and the honor of his house, like his hot air is actually going to scare the demon. Riefin has already pegged Stefan as the kind of guy who's allergic to good advice. Sir Edward, on the other hand, seems a bit more clued in, so there might be a sliver of hope. At the same time, Lord Ego is just dancing around Grillbeast, poking it with a stick. Pretty Boy is blasting it with Holy Light, and Relsia zips in for a super clean hit. The strike is so good it even gets a nod from Stefan. Riafin has to admit she's a close second to him, and way above Edward. He thinks maybe he low-key underestimated this squad. Then Todd finally decides to bust out his magic. He summons a blizzard, but the system glitches out and bam, Phase 2 kicks in. Grillbeast shatters its chains. It lunges right for the group, squashing people like ants, and that's when the real fun begins. Lord Ego charges the demon like he's the main character, only to get decked in the stomach and slammed into a wall before he can even blink. Edward just screams for his lord. But Stefan, being the genius he is, yanks Relkia back into the fight, and she immediately gets swatted down too. Before the Grillbeast can launch a massive fireball at them, Riefin dives in, shielding Pretty Boy just in the nick of time, and apologizing for being fashionably late. Now he's sizing up the demon, wondering if this body's fighting skills are actually enough to handle a monster this cracked. Back in his wizard days, he would have never taken an all-or-nothing gamble like this, but the fighter inside him is getting a serious rush. He's actually hyped to test his limits against such a powerful foe, and for the first time, he feels like a true martial artist. He thinks Gerard would no cap be proud of him. He remembers Grandpa Fist's #1 rule: when you hesitate, you lose, so just throw the first punch. He dodges the Grillbeast's attack with a focused blast of energy, but still gets clipped by the demon's blade. That's when he realizes a magic sword can mess him up, even if regular steel can't. The beast then kicks him so hard he craters into a wall. Pretty Boy screams his name in panic, but Riefin just shrugs it off, telling him he's cool. Cylon's jaw is on the floor, absolutely shocked to see Riefin's aura. He confirms that our boy is an aura wielder, though if Riefin had just waited a sec, he could have landed a clean counter, but after all those beatings from Grandpa Fist's tanking hits has pretty much become muscle memory for this dude. Deciding it's time to sharpen his skills, he taunts the ugly beast to come at him, and their clash sends shockwaves through the ruins. Meanwhile, Lord Ego is practically choking on his own pride, unable to believe this random guy has an aura when a noble like him couldn't awaken it. To him, the whole scene feels like a fever dream. He's just wondering who the hell this guy is and where this absolute unit even came from. The Dungeon Guardian Grillbeast goes absolutely berserk against Riefin, the self-proclaimed god of hands. But the fight only shows how far Riefin's come in his training. Every single swing from the demon feels telegraphed and sloppy. This lets Riefin counter every move with almost zero effort. The only issue is that these Ruin Guardians just don't die. The ruins keep feeding them magic, healing their wounds, and the beast just goes wild. But Riefin's Iron Fist puts it in a lockdown. He smacks its jaw with some aerial moves, then flips the script and uses it as a personal punching bag. He starts running his striking drills on it, and the party can only watch in awe as this absolute brute treats the demon like a training dummy. But Riefin knows he can't mess around forever. It's time to whip out the Calamity Horn and finish this with one epic shot. The demon beast actually jumps back, scared of the fierce fighter. Riafin curses his audience, knowing they're a huge liability, and one wrong move could bring the ceiling down. Cylon yells out that if they bless an aura-infused sword with holy power, it might be enough to put the creature down for good. Riefin already knows that technique, but he has to admit he has no clue how to actually channel his aura into a weapon. Cylon almost has a heart attack hearing that this hard-headed dude only ever runs aura through his body, calling his martial arts school completely insane. While Riefin is literally wrestling with the Grillbeast Pretty Boy, Cylon points out that his body is already tough enough. He then unleashes a blessing on both Riefin and his sword in the name of his god. The blessing surges through him like a bolt of lightning, firing him up even more. The brute then lifts the massive demon like it weighs nothing at all, and absolutely smashes it into the wall as a holy strike blazes through the weapon. He suddenly realizes the Pretty Boy just cast a spell on him. Bro literally used Holy Strike, which is meant for armor on his weapon, and it actually worked. Cylon, totally unfazed, just lets the big guy go absolutely wild. So, Riefin charges in, delivering a divine kick that could probably rearrange a dragon's jaw. He follows it up with a divine knee and a divine punch, then yeets the demon into the air before finishing the monster off with some serious style. After that flashy takedown, the Pretty Boy is practically giving him hard eyes, but Riefin just grumbles for Cylon to drop the spell already. As the injured are being carried away, Sir Useless starts piping up, complaining that Riefin hid his true strength way too well. He admits the dude is strong, but then he starts whining about his precious knightly honor being insulted, accusing Ryfin of sneering at them while they were getting wrecked. Ryfin just shrugs it off, telling the guy he never sneered once. The real tea is, he doesn't give a damn about these clowns enough to even bother. Stefan totally loses his cool and charges, but our bruiser just casually ducks, making Sir Useless trip over his own swing. The clown screeches about how he dared to dodge, but Ryfin calmly states again that he wasn't sneering. He then tells him to just take the sword, if it's that big a deal, but Edward, being the reasonable one, points out that a man with zero greed for such a valuable weapon shows he's built different. Stefan just grips the blade, fuming even harder. Meanwhile, the bruiser is thinking this thing is basically a knockoff compared to the gear he used to mass produce. Back in his glory days, he made way better stuff for other races. Totally over the drama, he tells everyone to head back, and they all follow, though the whiny knight is still stewing in his own saltiness. Back at the village, you can feel the relief as Father Ceylon heals a baby. The pretty boy is in full-on healer merchant mode, curing the sick and tossing out gold coins to the villagers like he's a celebrity. This kid definitely knows how to build the Holy Order's brand. Meanwhile, Lord Useless sulks off with his men. His second-in-command suggests they should probably investigate Ryfin's background, and Edward agrees. Ryfin's insane power level is clearly the only thing keeping Stefan from going ballistic, even though the clown refuses to admit he's weaker. At the same time, Ryfin plans to head out and find Cirrus, but he can't figure out why the pretty boy is still tagging along. Ceylon explains he's decided to become a traveling priest to spread the goddess's grace. He wants to tend to believers even if most priests who do that end up dead on the road. He was supposed to return to the Holy Order, but chose to become a pilgrim instead. Then his vibe gets a little weird as he asks if he can travel with the strongest person he's ever met. Ryfin instantly recognizes that look. It's the same one Gerard and Todd always had. They're sizing up his body in that creepy way, and our bruiser just sighs. He's thinking he's cursed to be a total magnet for weirdos. Still, the pretty boy seems like a decent guy, so a polite rejection should work. Until Ryfin remembers that Ceylon's a cleric. He's a walking, talking first aid kit. Having him around might not be such a bad idea if Cirrus ends up getting hurt. While our bruiser is hyped to see Ceres, the pretty boy won't stop pestering him with questions about his training regimen. He wants all the tips for getting upper, middle, and lower abs. All Ryfin can tell him is to get beaten up a lot and haul around giant boulders. He vaguely remembers an alchemist once bragging about some kind of muscle-boosting potion called protein, which Ceylon immediately dismisses as total nonsense. Meanwhile, back at his mansion, the heir of the Karen Trade Union, Lord Barry, is losing his mind over his elf's training. He's ranting that elves are supposed to serve their masters completely in both body and mind. His butler is begging for forgiveness, but Barry just keeps raging that this defective elf was a cheap Slayer model and still wasn't worth the price. Ceres gets up from the bed, declaring that she was born this way, with the very eyes he finds so annoying. Barry orders his butlers to go buy a proper elf, even if it's expensive, since he has no need for a so-called broken product. He tells them to return her to Elfenheim, the infamous elf slave market in the Chaitan Principality. And just like that, the same elven girl, number 148, is back up on the auction block for the third time. Up in the far north sits the Chaitan Principality, a nation of commerce that thrives off the Juron River, which cuts right through its territory. Ryfin and the pretty boy finally make it to Zeppelin, the capital and the very heart of all trade, where the streets are absolutely buzzing with merchants. Ceylon isn't shocked at all. It's exactly what he expected from the continent's top city for business. Ryfin points out that this entire place was founded by merchants who literally bought the land from the Grim Kingdom. So, no cap, everything here is about money and connections. He knows that his series has to be somewhere in this city. Silent is whining for Ryfin to slow down, totally calling him out for flexing those long legs just to show off. Just then, an old man starts pleading with a massive thug named Tarek to let him off the hook, but the jerk claims the old guy disrespected the roll of fame. This dude Tarek from the trade union beats the poor man 30 times, and then with zero chill just tosses 30 gold coins at him as payment. Silent immediately rushes over to help the elder. He's frantically looking for guards, only to see the old man on the ground, calmly scooping up the coins. The old man says it's all good, claiming the cash will help him get settled in the city, which leaves Silent absolutely shook. He can't believe the guy is acting like nothing happened just because he got paid. But Ryfin reminds him, this whole city runs on money. Like he already told him, Ryfin Loki thought all his travels would have taught Ceylon how the world works, but he's clearly never seen a city like this. A place where every single crime just gets settled with a fine instead of jail time as long as you've got the cash. Silent is stunned. He asks what business a beefcake like Ryfin even has here, and Ryfin just casually says he's in town to buy an elf. Pretty boy just freezes, completely horrified. He can't believe this is the kind of person he's traveling with. Rifen starts panicking, trying to find the right words, knowing he can't just drop the whole "I'm from another life" bomb. Silent is disgusted with men in general, but Rifen has to remind him, "Bruh, you're a man too." Meanwhile, that bulky thug Tarek is over there yapping. He's bragging to his elves that anyone complaining about the Rolafine trade union should just get on their grind and work harder. He says that just running their mouths in the street only gets them a couple of coins. This guy has elves following him everywhere, agreeing with all his BS. Suddenly, Tarek spots Lord Beret. Beret is just strolling in, and Tarek immediately asks about the Slayer elf he bought not too long ago. Beret looks totally annoyed to see him and admits he had to return her 2 weeks ago because she wouldn't listen. The big oaf just bursts out laughing. He's mocking him for being too weak to tame a single elf slave, saying it's no wonder his trade union can't even crack the top 10. Beret fires back that the Slayer elf has been returned by a ton of other people too, which is exactly why she was going for dirt cheap. Tarek just grins, already plotting to head over to Elfenheim and snatch her up himself purely to see the look on Beret's face. Rifen finds scrawny little Silent working out again and wonders why the kid is still so skinny after trying so damn hard. He tells the pretty boy not to overdo it, or he'll just be sore, but Silent heals himself in an instant like it's no big deal. That's when the light bulb goes off for Rifen. He realizes that healing magic is basically just hitting a rewind button on the body. So, instead of building muscle through the whole strain and recovery cycle, Pretty Boy just keeps resetting himself back to square one. This dumbhead has been wasting 5 years, making literally zero progress. The beefcake promises to show him a proper training method later on. He casually asks if his long hair gets in the way, and Silent just shrugs, saying it grows back ridiculously fast whenever he cuts it. That makes Rifen wonder what the hell is going on inside that kid's head to make it grow at warp speed. Rifen brushes it off, saying he's got enough cash for the slave auction and that Silent is tagging along with him. The place is absolutely slammed with all kinds of slaves. But elves are clearly the top prize, worth way more than orcs or dwarves thanks to their insane beauty and long lifespans. This stretches their teenage years out for decades. A Slayer elf sells for 800 gold coins, while a regular female elf goes for 300. A young girl costs about 100 and a young male only 30. Orcs are way cheaper. An orc swordsman is 10, a basic slave is 5, and even a baby orc is a steal. For just 4 or 5 gold coins you can get a baby. Adult male elves, however, have almost no demand because their suicide rate is through the roof. But elves overall stay super popular because of their looks and long lives. This combo keeps them looking youthful for way longer than other races. There's even a running joke that only a fool would invest in a baby elf, since the merchant would probably die of old age before ever seeing a profit. Silent explains that Elfenheim is an auction house specializing in elves with over 300 years of tradition. While Rifen finds it sick that a place like this is called the Paradise of Elves, Silent admits he's never actually been to an elf auction. He just assumes elves are treated better than orcs, but Rifen points out that they're still slaves and questions if they're actually happy. Silent argues that the elves might be better off enslaved than starving in the wild, but Rifen knows that's just a classic human way of thinking. He believes that true respect only comes from power. He's already planning a new kind of empire, but not a dark one. He wants to build a nation where non-human races can live free. Soon the auctioneer brings out the prize slayers of Elfenheim. They're so beautiful they make our pretty boy blush. The old man running the auction wonders why this brute would drag a young lady into a place like this. Seeing these forest fairies, descendants of the Great Spirit, treated like products makes Rifen's stomach turn. He still asks to see a slayer with darker skin. The man teases him for his unusual taste and then brags about the elves' strict diets and training. He's basically running down a list of features like it's some kind of sale, but Rifen cuts him off, having none of it, and demands to see the elf right now. Finally, they lead him to number 148. She's a Slayer candidate not even fully grown, and his heart absolutely shatters seeing how worn down his Ceres has become. It hits different because he remembers back in the day when Ceres laid into him for mixing a fire plant with a seed rock, right before the whole lab went boom. The old archwizard was totally sulking after that. He kept insisting he was on the verge of a massive breakthrough, but the feisty elf clapped back that he pulled the same stunt yesterday and blew everything to Kingdom Come then too. Still, while wiping the soot from his face, she couldn't help but think he looked low-key adorable, even for an old dude. Rifen asked her to drop the formalities and just call him by his name, but she shot that down hard without giving him a reason why. At the same time, total chaos was erupting outside, with fires breaking out all over, and King Lepanarth himself rolled up to the gallery with 4 warriors in tow. Tathid arrived to pay his final respects, while the king glanced over at Atilka Marshalin and Cyrus asking them why they looked so damn miserable. This wasn't the first time he'd seen someone about to kick the bucket. All across the continent, humanity had rallied. They'd gathered a colossal army of 2 million soldiers. They were prepared to throw everything they had, the whole kitchen sink, at taking down the Demon King, their ultimate nemesis. He can't help but wonder how they plan to handle the aftermath if the nations are really about to wreck themselves over one single fight. All of this just because they can't accept that another race has a right to exist. The Seed pleads with their lord to get out of there with them, but Lepenhart flat out refuses, saying he'll hold the line so they have a chance to escape. He also turns to Allpath and asks for his forgiveness. I mean, despite having a divine guarantee, he somehow still ended up completely broke. The dwarf calls it an oracle's message, but Lepenhart just shrugs, saying it's all the same. The message was clear: keep an elf at his side and follow the orc who was leading the charge. The prophecy also said that someone who had traversed the Diamond Abyss, destined to shatter the Pillar of Hawkrule, would show up to rewrite his fate and bring salvation. Back then, the Archwizard was seriously confused when dwarves suddenly started calling him their savior. Bruh, all he did was accidentally blast half of their sanctuary to pieces. Even now, with Allpath's blessing on him, he doesn't fully get it. Michelin voices her hope that they'll meet again, and Lepenhart says he feels the same. Back in the past, Riffin had just wanted Athilka and Tathid to make it out alive. He told Ceres to go with them, but she promised she would wait for him. He even told her to go find a nice guy if he didn't return. But she stood her ground, which completely melted the old Archwizard, and he caved, giving her one final hug. Back in the present, the seller is practically oozing guilt as he presents her. He calls her a defective product with no education who's already been returned 3 times. He admits she's skilled, but claims she has a god-awful personality. She's been labeled inferior, and is now just used as a living training dummy for other elves, making them practice on actual living things. The auctioneer then asks if this musclehead is interested, and seeing his strange taste, he decides to hike the price up to 300 gold coins. Our boy asks why on earth she's so cheap, but the old man just keeps insisting she's nothing more than a low-quality item. When Ceres is finally brought before her new owner, Rifen can only stare and wonder what kind of hell she must have endured to get all those scars. The seller offers to go get a priest, but Rifen tells the pretty boy Salon to take care of the healing instead. Then Rifen gently drapes his own coat over Ceres' shoulders. He murmurs that it's cold out, and then asks if he can call her Ceres. She agrees with a flat, empty tone, so he tries to soften the moment by giving her a full name, Sirius Valencia. She immediately objects, saying a slave has no need for a surname. She asks if it's his name, but he quickly explains that it's hers to carry from this day forward. It's not his name. He then introduces himself as Riffenhard and points to his companion Silan, a priest of philanthropy. A short while later, the seller starts sweating bullets when an absolutely furious customer storms into his shop, demanding to know why number 148 was sold just an hour before. Tariq thinks Burr must have figured out his plan to reclaim her. The seller tries to explain. He says the buyer was a young guy he'd never seen before who paid for her in cash on the spot. The big thug Bulk is stunned that anyone would just be walking around with that kind of money for a slayer, the old man adds. He even managed to sell the so-called inferior product for a much higher price. When the thug presses him for details, he describes the buyer as a seriously built dude who shouldn't be too hard to find. Meanwhile, Rifen is busy trying to find some decent clothes for Ciri. He finds an outfit that really suits her and promises he'll get her a lot more later. He then gently asks if she's hungry, but she just replies that she will do whatever her master commands. Rifen tells her straight up not to see him as a master, but her only response is to ask if that means he's going to send her back. Sirius's brain is totally blue screening right now. This guy covers her with his coat, buys her expensive new clothes, and is acting like she's just a regular human girl. She can't make sense of it at all. Rifen tells Sirius it'd be way better if she saw him as a travel buddy instead of a master, and to just call him by his name. She's low-key thinking this is some weirdo roleplay, like he's some pervy adventurer playing hero with his new swordswoman. So, she settles on calling him Sir Rifen Hearth, still absolutely convinced that all humans are basically the same kind of trash. A bit later, while Sirius is eating like she hasn't seen food in a year, Rifen points out that Redanti's Grace is the most famous restaurant in all of Zeppelin. Since the goddess Redanti is the deity of earth and harvest chowing down, here is pretty much a form of worship. The pretty boy priest argues that if it's supposed to be worship, then the food should be free, but Rifen fires back that Phylon's religion literally profits from beauty. Father Salon has to admit that's no cap. She is the goddess of beauty and love, after all, and her priests charge a whole lot of gold for their services. So he just drops it, and meanwhile, our beefcake MC is just grinning, watching Sirius absolutely demolish her food like a wild animal. Her intensity is clearly creeping him out, and he starts to wonder if she hates this place now, since this is the exact spot he brought her to before. He'd taken her here to celebrate the anniversary of their first meeting, but back then he was her savior, and now he's just the guy who bought her. The meaning hits different now, and he wonders if fate just pushed them together way too soon, but he's still holding out hope that one day, she'll finally accept his words, and for the time being, he's actually cool with that. Afterwards, at the weapon shop, Sirius immediately grabs a rapier. Our boy calls out that she normally uses a scimitar, and this gets him a death glare, as she silently wonders how this dude knows her preferences. The pretty boy priest jumps in bragging that real martial artists can tell what weapon someone uses just by their hands, and Salon can't believe he's getting a mithril weapon. He'd always wanted one, but Ryfin shuts him down hard, saying priests don't have any business carrying blades. Before they can get into it, a group of shady-looking dudes approaches Ryfin, and they're clearly here on business. The sketchy guy says some noble wants to buy the elf, and even offers to trade her for a proper slayer, pulling out a bill of exchange. Our rugged MC just gives him a flat-out no. He just repeats that he's not interested at all. The shady crew just figures he's too attached to his new toy, and walks off, while Salon just thinks they were a bunch of weirdos. Later at a mansion, a guy named Tarek is fuming at Romod for coming back empty-handed, yelling that he should have at least beaten the guy up and taken his coins. Romod explains that the naive kid refused to sell no matter the price, and with too many eyes on them, it wasn't the right time to do something that goes against public morals. He promises he'll wait for the perfect moment to snatch the slayer, fake her death, and then offer the guy double what he paid. He figures it's a steal since she was sold for so little in the first place. Tarek loves the plan and tells him to drag Sir Lantis along for the job. Apparently that guy has been useless lately, just sitting around and not earning the money he's being paid. Meanwhile, our beefcake MC is counting the 2,000 gold he'd set aside for his journey. He's actually surprised he has plenty left over. It's nowhere near enough to rebuild his empire, but it's way better invested than just being carried around. That's when a memory hits him. A huge famine is about to wreck the agricultural nation of Krovan and its neighbor. Even though Redanti's fertile lands usually produce such massive harvests, nobody ever thinks to prepare for a famine. The following spring, the famine causes mass starvation, and it gets so bad that parents end up eating their own children just to survive. This convinces our MC that it's a genius move to start investing in grain right now. He thinks about Ralafane, Karen, and Taoban, but he immediately rules out Ralafane because their pervy leader abused Sirius in his past life. That leaves Taoban the continent's third largest union. They specialize in grain and are the main rivals to Ralafane. At that exact moment, Sivolt Taoban, the leader of the union, is absolutely losing his mind when he hears the news. Ralafan is dumping a ton of wheat and barley on the market at half price, and he's calling them senseless and unethical, worried he's about to lose his trade partners. He desperately wants to fix these exchange issues fast. Just then his lackey informs him that a visitor has arrived who wants to invest. The leader just scoffs, thinking a small sum of money is just going to cause him more headaches, but his attitude completely changes when he hears the amount. The man is offering 15,000 gold coins for grain. He lays out the plan for Ryfin. The deal is supposed to go down in the Krovan's kingdom, timed perfectly with the barley harvest next spring. But Sivolt ain't having it, basically saying that trying to sell grain there is as pointless as trying to sell a heater in a volcano. He insists that it won't work, but adds that if it flops, it's his own neck on the line. On the flip side, if it's a success, Sivolt gets a piece of the action. Still, the leader isn't about to back what he sees as a total train wreck, and tells him to give it a second thought. This absolute unit then threatens to just pack up and move his business to a rival union, which finally makes the trader fold. Even though he complains that their union is already in a tight spot, he says he's determined to push through these hard times. He wants to cash in big later, trying to get Raven to pick a less risky investment, but he knows this guy is as stubborn as they come. Ryfin was just as stubborn in his last life, so it's no surprise this dude is insisting it's his cash and his decision. He's totally ready to sign on the dotted line. But first, he gives Sivolt a serious warning not to even think about pocketing a single coin for himself. Then Ryfin checks if the Taoban Trade Union has a spot in the Grand Kingdom way up north. Our guy asks if there's a branch near Delphia's Mage Tower, but the manager clarifies he'll have to go through Delphia to get to the Ronta branch instead. That's when Ryfin gets real slick and asks if the guy can dig up some dirt on a certain someone over there. Low-key, he's totally using this as a chance to get the scoop on Ryfinheart. Meanwhile, Salon is just watching Cyrus. She's pulling off some absolutely cracked moves with her weapon, almost like she's flexing for a crowd. Cyrus thinks back to her mom telling her how the High Elves used to be the guardians of the forest. They lived in pure bliss under the world tree Elfenheim, vibing with all the animals and feasting on endless fruit. But then humans rolled in and wrecked everything, pushing them into a miserable existence. Her mother was convinced Eldia would guide them back to that paradise one day. And since they were descended from the Great Fairy, she told Cyrus to never ever forget her pride. Later, some other bitter elf woman told her a different story. She said Cyrus would be sold to a nice place since she was pretty, so she'd better start acting like a good, obedient little elf. Cyrus ended up getting beat, starved, and relentlessly bullied just for being a pure-blooded high elf. Her own heritage was treated like it was worthless. What finally saved her wasn't some act of kindness, but a sword. Every adult she knew had one fighting and going out on their own terms. And holding that blade, she could almost see the proud figures of her parents again. The memories have gotten fuzzy over time, but there's one thing that still hits different deep down. It was her mother's voice telling her beloved daughter she must never lose her pride. Back in the present, Salon is totally blown away by Cyrus's insane skills. But when Cyrus just says she's trying her best, Salon lets out a groan, complaining that it's the same lame line Refon used, and wonders if all warriors are this boring. She tries to show off her own move, but a crew of shady-looking dudes interrupt, with Romad smoothly announcing, "They're here to take the elf girl to her real owner." Yeah, this creep Romad is dead set on dragging Cyrus to whoever he thinks owns her. Father Cylon steps up asking who they are, but Romad just scoffs, telling them not to bother screaming for help. He brags that they've already planned for everything. Our pretty boy priest argues they aren't selling her, so why are they getting violent all of a sudden? A goon lunges at Salon, calling him an annoying little punk, but Cyrus blocks the hit just in the nick of time and goes full beast mode, taking out the rest of the crew. Romad is just standing there, completely shook, unable to process how a so-called elf slave is this powerful. Then Pretty Face tells Philinance it's time to teach these disrespectful punks a lesson with their iron mace. Out of nowhere, Cyrus saves Cylon from getting shivved by Romad, who just sneers that no one's gonna shed a tear if some random young pilgrim bites the dust. Cylon is absolutely furious, but Cyrus steps in front of him, saying she's got this. Romad then calls for Talcata, his orc heavy, telling him it's go time. The orc actually apologizes to Cyrus, saying it's not personal, and this is just her fate, so she should probably just roll with it. Talcata admits her skills are way beyond the usual humans he's used to squashing. Romad, the absolute weirdo, warns him not to leave any bruises on her, so the big orc tries to just grab her instead. Cyrus has a tough time dodging his massive swings. She's seriously regretting leaving her scimitar back in her room. Romad starts raging that the orc can't even snatch one little elf girl, while Talcata just grumbles. This whole mess means he's not getting dinner tonight. Super frustrated, he charges again, but this time Cyrus meets him head-on and straight up yeets him. The moment she stops dodging, the orc freaks out, thinking she might get seriously hurt, which, ironically, gives her the perfect window to land a hit. Talcata is horrified, thinking he almost unalived her, not realizing Cyrus was banking on his self-control the entire time. Right then, Father Cylon asks if the Slayer elf thinks she can dodge some flying daggers. She remembers doing it once before, so he takes her at her word and starts prepping his magic. Romad is completely livid. He chucks a blade right at Cylon, but Cyrus bats it away, buying the priest just enough time to finish his chant and unleash some holy justice on the scumbag. A massive explosion goes off, and Cylon starts running, while explaining that divine power is only supposed to work on demons and the undead. But hey, at least it bought them a few seconds to escape. Cyrus isn't even listening. She just grabs him like a sack of potatoes and jumps straight through a window. The shady freak screams at Takata to go after them. But that's when Sir Lantis finally takes notice of this whole clown show. He can't believe Romad is still failing to catch one girl. He finds it pretty funny that a so-called elf slayer is holding her own against a veteran orc warrior. The old man decides it's his turn to play, launching himself into the air in a single leap. Romad is stunned by the jump and realizes, oh crap, this guy is an aura user. Looks like the old geezer is low-key, enjoying this, ready to turn the chase into a twisted game of hide-and-seek on the other side. But Father Cylon is bugging out, wanting to risk it all and go back for their gear. Cyrus immediately shuts that down, telling him the thugs are definitely camping their stuff, but Cylon argues that fighting one or two guys is a better bet than running with a single dagger between them. Of course, the Slayer elf just sees some clueless kid talking a big game he can't back up. Just then a thug busts in, only to get his face completely rearranged by a swift kick from Cyrus. Our pretty boy priest rushes in, telling them to grab what they can and bounce, cause there's no time for a wardrobe change. He uses a prayer to cover their tracks, completely unaware that some next-level trouble is closing in fast. Sir Lantis isn't just any swordsman. He's hit the great stage of swordsmanship and awakened his aura, and he can already feel their plan to hole up in the room. With that aura, the geezer can track any living thing within 30 meters, like he's got built-in wall hacks, but Sir Lantis has a problem. He never expected this kid could just delete his presence like a high-ranking cleric. Finding the room empty, he figures they must have slipped away. But when Romad, the shady-looking freak, accuses him of letting them go, the old man snaps back and orders him to release the hounds. He knows they couldn't have gotten very far. Meanwhile, Cyrus thinks their best bet is to lose themselves in the city streets. Cylon immediately calls her out, saying, "That's a dumb idea." The second people realize they're runaway slaves, every single person will turn on them for the bounty. It finally hits him why so many pilgrims die on the road. He always thought the Holy Order had it easy, but the idea of going back now is terrifying. Not in this weak body, and definitely not with that woman waiting to snatch him up again. Man, he really misses Ryfin right about now. Desperate Cylon starts praying for the crossroads of fate. The spell says that out of all the people in the world, when two paths cross, it might seem like a coincidence. But in reality, if it's blessed by the gods, it's straight up destiny. At first, Cylon feels kinda weird using a sacred spell meant for matchmaking like this. Then the pretty-faced priest compliments Cyrus on her strength, admitting he knows another Slayer elf named Relsia, but he says Cyrus is on a completely different level. In return, Cyrus can't help but notice Cylon acts way too much like a seasoned high-ranking cleric for a kid his age. The priest is genuinely stunned that talking to the Slayer elf feels just like talking to a normal human. He starts to wonder if she's some kind of rare special case. They finally make it to where they're going, only to get that chilling feeling that a strange old man has been on their tail the whole time. It's Sir Lantis, and he thanks the kids for the warm-up. He gives them a friendly warning not to bother running, since turning your back just makes you an easier target. The Slayer elf doesn't hesitate. Her choice is simple: cut down the enemy in front of her and bust through. She charges right at him. And the old man can tell right away this girl isn't some amateur. She's poured some serious time into her sword skills, which is wild for a slave. Cyrus is shook by the force of their clash, realizing this isn't some street thug. Nah, this is a real swordsman, probably knight level. Cylon is just confused, wondering why someone this powerful is even involved in this mess. Wasting no time, he starts chanting, pouring blessings onto the Slayer elf's weapon, giving her the strength of a giant. He blesses her with the eyes of a hawk and legs like a bull to take this dude down. Sir Lantis, however, is floored seeing this kid casually cast high-level spells like he's a bishop. Cylon shouts that he used to be a big deal down in the Vasily Kingdom. He hypes Cyrus up, telling her to beat the brakes off this old jerk. Lantis is surprised. With a cleric backing her up, she's a whole new fighter. This new power has made Cyrus almost unrecognizable, but just as she lunges for a killer blow, her sword suddenly snaps in half, leaving her completely stunned. The old man just laughs. He finally reveals that her fighting spirit was only high because he was just playing with her the whole time. Father Cylon's face goes pale as he finally senses it. Lantis is an aura user. The priest can't believe it. Someone of that level wasting their power to hunt down a single elf slave? That's like hiring a dragon just to light your fireplace. The shady freak Romid shows up just as Lantis corners them, and that's when it all clicks for Father Cylon. He recognizes him. He blurts out the name, Lantos von Kalpenard, the legendary knight of the Taken Kingdom. The old man is shocked that this kid actually knows who he is. A descendant of a noble family, Lantos awakened his aura in his late 30s, and his skills shook the entire kingdom. The whole realm celebrated the birth of a new aura user, but behind all that glory was a filthy dark secret, an unspeakable obsession with elf slaves. An obsession that completely spiraled out of control. It got so bad it ended up staining the reputation of the royal city and the nobility itself. The man once celebrated as a hero, Sir Lantis is now only remembered as the biggest disgrace in the history of the Taken Kingdom. Cylon absolutely loses it, calling the old man a monster who's been hiding out in the Principality of Chiton this whole time. He goes off saying people used to whisper about him constantly. They'd say if a woman was out alone at night, Lantis would come for her. Cyrus can't believe an aura user would sink so low, but Lantis just brushes it off, saying a guy's gotta do what he can to earn his salary. This dude literally admits to unaliving countless people in the Taken Kingdom, only to escape here and whine that he hasn't gotten to play tag in forever. But Romid argues that Lantis' psycho reputation doesn't mean squat compared to the massive advantage of having an aura user on their team. From his perspective, it's a win-win. The crazy guy does all their dirty work, gets to live free, and even gets a paycheck for it all while they have a cracked aura user as their trump card. And no cap, this strategy is how the Roll of Fame trade union absolutely exploded over the last 10 years, becoming the second biggest powerhouse around. Back in the present, he makes a move to shut down our pretty boy cleric, knowing exactly how bad it would be to let a high-level healer run his mouth. He lunges right at Cylon, but Romad warns him to back off, saying their boss Tarek will be seriously pissed if he hurts the elf. The old man just shrugs, claiming they can always just snatch another cleric to patch her up. He then decides he's taking the good-looking one with them. Romad mutters under his breath about the creepy old perv, while Cylon screams that he's a dude. Lantis, meanwhile, just finds the whole thing amusing. He calls it a unique experience, and promises to take extra special care of the little fella, which is the exact moment our pretty-faced cleric finally snaps. He warns Ramad not to lay a single finger on him. Then, shocking everyone, Cylon staggers to his feet, with his tendons already sliced, looking like the world's most beautiful broken puppet. The creeper just growls that they'll just have to start taking off his limbs if he's going to be difficult. But before he can even twitch, a massive explosion blows the room apart, and an absolutely furious voice booms through the settling smoke. And who else would it be but Ryfin Heath, who's losing his mind that they dared to lay a hand on Sirius. Ryfin's sudden appearance makes the entire room freeze solid. Even Sir Lantis sizes him up, realizing this absolute unit of a man isn't your average Joe. The old man can feel a crushing aura just pouring off of him. When he looks to Romad for an explanation, the sketchy freak just scoffs that he's just some random dude who bought the elf slave. Lantis can't believe what he's hearing. His instincts are screaming that this guy is a walking red flag, yet this clown is still calling Ryfin a nobody. If he, an aura user, can't even sense the guy's power level, then Ryfin Hearth must be an aura user too. Ryfin ignores all the tension and just thanks Father Cylon for keeping Sirius safe. The creeper eyes him up and down, guessing he's got to be in his late 30s. He even admits it's been a hot minute since he's fought someone this strong. Ryfin fires back, telling the pervy old geezer to drop the noble knight act. He calls him out for being nothing but scum. Then our MC charges in, and the impact from their first collision is enough to shake everyone to their bones. The Iron Fist just plows forward his punches, turning the whole fight into pure, unadulterated chaos. Romad, the shady guy, starts freaking out, telling his lackeys they're going to get wiped out if they get caught in that hurricane of fists. While Ryfin keeps the creeper busy, Sirius quietly asks the healer if her master is actually an aura user. Cylon just sighs and tells her he already said so. Lantis is getting frustrated because these skills don't belong to someone who just woke up their aura. Suddenly, the creeper leaps high into the air, prepping his next attack. He manages to catch Ryfin off guard, but our boy fires back with a bullet punch, forcing the old geezer to admit something. This guy is way too skilled with his aura, which means there are only two possible answers. Either this tank of a man unlocked his aura in his teens, or he's actually over 40 years old and is just hiding behind a baby face. Both options make zero sense. And the fact that he can't figure it out just pisses the creeper off even more, so he charges in with his sword. But the brute doesn't back down for a second, absolutely livid. He's wondering how this perverted knight can be so unbelievably strong and use a sword with such skill, especially after putting his filthy hands on Sirius. Our MC is dead set on knocking this creep down a peg. He brushes off the geezer's smug line about martial arts building character, and the fight heats up fast. Lantis nearly swallows his tongue when the brute deflects his sword with just a bare arm, and he's low-key impressed. The creeper asks if he's a student of the martial king Gerard, but Ryfin doesn't even bother to grace him with an answer. So, Lantis straight up demands to know why someone this cracked would care so much about a measly slave. That's the trigger word. The second he hears Sirius get called a slave, Ryfin's temper absolutely explodes. He roars that slaves have feelings and a will of their own, and asks the old man if he's ever even talked to one, or ever once questioned why they were enslaved to begin with. The battle rages on, leaving the creeper totally baffled by what he considers pure nonsense. To him, and to pretty much everyone in Ryfin's old life, non-humans were always seen as inferior. It was a twisted belief buried deep in society's bones. They'd see other races laugh, cry, and live just like them, but still refuse to believe they had actual emotions. Our MC points out that other races laugh and cry just like humans do. So how does that make them any less deserving of freedom? The creeper just spits back that it's the natural order, and that's when Ryfin fully snaps. He yells, asking why the descendants of the great fairies are born in chains in the first place. He reminds him that if humans weren't the ones on top, it could have easily been them wearing the shackles. Our boy keeps laying into him, spitting facts about how humans enslaved the orcs. Then the dwarves, then the elves, cheering every single time like it was some glorious achievement. He demands to know how they can justify it. The knight is absolutely losing his mind when Ryfin says the elves are basically asking for it, even daring to call them equal to humans. But our MC ain't having it, roaring that Sirius is nobody's property and lunging at the old fossil who barely dodges the attack. He goes on a full-blown rant saying the entire continent is built on a foundation of oppression, where weak humans are practically serfs. He warns that toxic ideologies like that are a boomerang just waiting to smack everyone back. But these fools are too blind to see it, so he punctuates his point by booting the knight's face into the ground. With fire in his eyes, he snarls that if this messed up system isn't torn down, everyone will eventually live in fear of being next. Our boy growls that change is coming no matter what it takes. Lantis is straight up trembling as Ryfin smashes a fist right into his gut. He makes the creep spit up blood before launching him clean through a solid wall. Ryfin swears that no one's ever gonna call Sirius or anyone else a slave again. Sirius just stares her jaw on the floor, trying to figure out if this dude has main character energy or is just completely unhinged. A memory hits Sirius of Ryfin screaming that the Slayer elf wasn't a slave, and she remembers exactly what she thought back then. She was convinced this lunatic was just some crazy bastard with all his rants about treating slaves like people and questioning why they were enslaved in the first place. He'd even warned that humans could end up in chains themselves, which sounded like total fantasy roleplay nonsense. She low-key even wondered if he was just another hopeless weirdo with a fetish, but then things changed. The moment he brought up how descendants of the great fairies were born into slavery, it just hit different, forcing her to think about her own family history. Back in the present, Sir Lantis is crying for help from under the rubble, but Ryfin just sneers at him. He's like, "Bruh, why would I ever save a scumbag like you?" The knight swears on his sword that he'll turn his life around. He promises to spend his life doing good deeds, and his face looks dead serious, but Ryfin isn't buying this act for a second. He spits that he despises the Seer Holy Order, calling it a club where scumbags can sin all they want, and then just get a spiritual car wash at the temple. Our MC says if this guy is actually for real about repenting, then he's got one option. He better march himself to the authorities instead of trying to get a get-out-of-jail-free card from the temple. Lantis quickly swears he'll turn himself in. The knight claims he doesn't want to dirty Ryfin's hands anymore, but our boy claps back that his hands are already filthy. Still, he decides to trust the creep just for now. Then he says if the knight is truly serious about atoning for what he's done, he needs to accept that death is what he deserves and be ready to pay for his sins. Sirius and Father Seelan are completely floored as Ryfin smashes the rubble, warning the knight not to throw around the word repent. He says it's not some cheap prayer you can just toss out. After that, he finally goes to check on Sirius. The pretty boy priest confirms her wounds are all healed, and Ryfin just shrugs when he's called the best walking first aid kit ever. It sends a shiver down our MC's spine just hearing Sirius say his name, even if her tone is colder than ice. She just mutters that he's a total weirdo. Then the priest spots Ramad and his goon trying to sneak away, and Ryfin dares them to make a run for it. He promises to give them a very educational experience if they do. Our MC demands to know who hired these clowns to go after Sirius, casually whipping out his club, which instantly has the goons sweating bullets. They realize this guy's vibe check is a solid no mercy. Fast forward a few smacks, and the chumps are looking seriously busted up. They finally spill the tea. It was Tarek, the absolute slimeball who runs the Rolofane trade union. He's apparently holed up on the southern edge of Zeppelin just past the castle gate. Ryfin's jaw tightens. No cap, he remembers that bastard. That's the scumbag who tormented Sirius for 10 long years in his previous life. Back then he had gone to, only to discover the rat was already a rotting corpse in his own bed. A nervous Romad can't help but speak up. He asks the big guy if he's seriously planning to hunt down Tarek, warning him he might not come back from this one. That scumbag then tells our muscle-bound hero a little secret. Turns out this bulldozer of a man controls the second largest trade union in the entire Chiton Principality. So, starting a beef with him is basically like asking the whole region to come at you. Our guy just says he's well aware of the kind of trash he's up against. On his way out, he takes pity on the clowns. He tells them to get close so they don't turn into popsicles. One moron takes it too literally and starts copping a feel of Romad's chest for warmth, which totally sets him off. Meanwhile, back at the estate, the grumpy lord is fuming, demanding to know when the elf is coming back and cussing out Romad for taking so long. He even confesses that he used Lantis's payment to buy those elves. Right then, a commotion kicks off outside, and he just assumes it's the usual riffraff. But nope, it's Ryfin who's already out there tearing through Tarek's crew, while Prettyface patches them up. Ryfin is visibly fighting the urge to just unalive them all. He even asks Salon if his healing magic can fix a broken heart, or maybe just wipe a few memories. The priest just lets out a sigh. He explains that even a physical wound can leave a permanent scar on your memory. The priest then asks what Ryfin would have done with all the witnesses, if he hadn't tagged along. The big guy coolly replies that he would have just walked away with that dirtbag's head. Prettyface breathes a sigh of relief. He says he can just wipe their memories clean. He then admits he's low-key hyped to see that clown get absolutely wrecked too. Then completely out of the blue, Takada steps onto the scene blocking the path of our intruders. Our hard-headed MC tells him the guy he's protecting isn't worth a damn, so why is he even bothering to raise a sword for him? Takada's answer is simple. A warrior's job is to see things through to the end. If he backs down now, he'd be no true warrior. Raifen points out that the dude inside isn't even his real master, but the orc is stubborn, insisting that a duty is a duty. Even one he was forced into. The brute knows orcs are honorable and bullheaded like that. Sira and Salon are completely floored when they hear him speaking fluent. Orcish. The Slayer then steps forward, saying she'll take on Takeda, this time armed with a brand new weapon. The orc just scoffs, saying a puny elf has gotten a little stronger. In the meantime, the brute asks Salon to have his back if things go south. Prettyface just smirks, saying that's his specialty. Takada demands to know if this powerful human is just going to brush him aside to get to Tarek. Raifen replies that his real opponent is the elf girl. It would be a major sign of disrespect to her if he focused on anyone else. The orc can't help but agree. He knows that's just how their people are wired. With that settled, the brute steps inside, immediately hit by the foul smell of drugs. But the sight that greets him makes his blood run cold. There are Tarek and Barry half-dressed and lying in their own filth. After all the messed up stuff he's seen, this one hits different. It makes his blood absolutely boil. This time, he can't just let it go. The scent of aphrodisiacs hangs heavy in the air as the massive thug. Tariq screams, wanting to know who the hell this intruder is and why his guards didn't sound an alarm. That's when Raifen spots the elf all bloodied and out cold. A raw fury just explodes in his chest. In a total panic, Tarek yells for Takada and starts babbling about whether the intruder is after his money or his markets. He's dead convinced the Talboyne trade union sent him. He then swears on the Rolafine trade union's name that he'll pay double whatever Talboyne was offering, even promising there'd be no retaliation if they sign a contract. The thought of Sira, enduring this slimeball for 10 long years, just pours gasoline on Raifen's burning rage, before the giant thug can even finish his sentence. Our hard-headed hero snaps, burying his fist deep into the guy's stomach. When Raifen demands answers, the dude spits out that scum, like Tarek actually dared to lay a hand on Sira. The thug starts bawling, claiming he doesn't know anything about her, but our boy shows zero mercy. He shatters the hands that violated her, and then breaks the legs that kicked her, unable to even speak about the rest of it. Barrett can only watch in absolute terror, thinking this is way too cruel. But the brute insists this is exactly how the people Tarek killed must have felt, when Barrett calls him a murderer. Raifen just shoots back, mocking him for being a killer himself. The man swears he lives with a clear conscience, but our king of fists isn't buying it for a second. Outside, Sira and Salon are watching the whole thing unfold. The Slayer whispers that it's too brutal, but the hero just growls back that guys like that deserve far worse. The priest actually agrees his own past as an adventurer having hardened him. Our pretty boy then gives a report the Slayer already took care of Takada. Though he couldn't intervene in time, Sira says Salon's healing saved her life. Through his heightened senses, Raifen knows Takada isn't actually dead. He can still feel a faint breath. That's when Barry blurts out that Sira is the Slayer, who's come back. The Slayer elf asks him straight up if he's the one who killed that elf child. Sira, whining a ton, just stammers, asking what she's gonna do if he did. She draws her sword, her voice like ice, and declares that even a worthless life like his might be enough to soothe the child's spirit, so she'll at least do that for them. Barrett stumbles back in sheer horror. He can't believe he's about to die over some elf slave. As she cuts him down, his last cry for help is aimed at the very children he murdered. But right before his hand makes contact, Sirius ends him, vowing that she won't let scum like him lay a filthy finger on her. A bit later, the group is gathered around a bonfire as Talcata does a head count, reporting that they've got 7 female elves and 9 male orcs. Sirius offers her thanks, but he just bows, declaring that since his father Silon served her, he is her master now too. Silon immediately points out the totally lopsided gender ratio. The Slayer elf adds that no cap male elves and female orcs aren't exactly in high demand. Hearing someone say Eldia triggers a memory of Raifen for Sirius. She remembers him asking about the fate of the slaves mid-battle, which makes her wonder if she's had him pegged all wrong this whole time. Just then, Muscle Freak returns, whipping out a slave contract officially sealed by the Rolafine union leader. This ain't just any piece of paper, it took some serious work to track down. When they ask how he got it, our hero casually explains he found the safe by busting a hole through the office wall, which earns him a lecture from Father Silon for being a total barbarian. The weirdo is low-key stunned. Nobody's called him that in 50 years. He starts to worry that he is actually turning into a simple-minded brute. Salon asks why he even bothered with the slave contract, and Rifen says they need it. He turns to everyone and declares that they're all free to make their own choices now. He tells them nobody has to live like a slave anymore. Whispers erupt through the crowd, completely confused by the word freedom. To them, it just sounds like taking orders from a new boss. It's actually tragic. They don't even have a concept of what freedom is. The priest asks if Rafen's plan is to get into the slave trade himself, but the big guy makes it clear he has zero intention of selling them. Salon then wonders if he's thinking about quitting the adventurer life to settle down. Without another word, our boy stamps the Rolofane seal right on the contract, officially severing their connection to Tarek's ownership for good. He knows this is mostly just a formality to give them a safe place to land. After all, releasing people with no home and no strength left is just a move to make himself feel good. Just throwing them out into the world unprepared would be like tossing lambs to wolves. It would only put them in more danger. Muscle Freak decides they need an education first. Later, over at the Taobang Sea Vault, is absolutely horrified to hear Rifen brought Union leader Tarek's slaves with him. He demands to know how Rifen bought them, but our hard-headed MC just says he'll find out soon enough. For now, he needs Sea Vault to hide them somewhere nobody will look. He drops a heavy hint that by tomorrow morning, Sea Vault will be the only one to figure out the truth. So, if the secret gets out, he'll be the #1 suspect. Sea Vault, who is no stranger to these kinds of threats, hears him out. Then our hero hands him a purse containing 100 gold coins. It's more than enough to cover their care. The Taobang leader's jaw hits the floor, assuming this absolute lunatic must have robbed the Rolofane Manor. He still accepts the deal, though, and mentions he has a place on the edge of Zeppelin where they'll be completely off the radar. Our guy is dead serious, insisting that no one is to touch them or treat them like property. Except for him, of course. Sea Vault just agrees to the terms. He jokes that owners can get a little possessive, but admits the payment is way over the top. That's when Rifen clarifies the money is also for their education. He wants them taught language numbers, accounting, history, philosophy, and if possible, even medicine and healing. Sea Vault finds this super weird, since he was certain Tarek had already given them basic training. But the brute makes it clear this is about real learning. This isn't about conditioning. The very idea blows Sea Vault's mind that Riffenhart wants to give slaves a legitimate education. He has to ask. Why go to such insane lengths? Rafen counters with cold logic. The more skilled a slave is, the more useful they are to their master. The trader scoffs, insisting slaves aren't capable of learning like that. But our hero says it's his money, so it's a gamble he's willing to take. If it works, the slaves become more valuable, which in turn benefits him. Sea Vault has to admit that's going to be a tough road. He says there's no way any respectable scholar would ever agree to teach a bunch of slaves. Our guy just nods, fully aware of how arrogant scholars can be. He suggests hiring some broke students instead, but the trader pushes back. He argues that a student can't teach what they haven't mastered themselves. Our guy clarifies that he's only looking for the basics, language, numbers, that's it. Just simple skills which would make it way cheaper. Sea Vault finally caves, but he warns Rifen that it'll be a total waste. He says it's like trying to teach a cat to read. This hits different for Rifen, who remembers that in his past life a few people had the exact same idea, educating slaves. It didn't seem crazy to him, but the upper class mocked the idea as if it were like teaching a dog to paint a mural. The elites were completely sold on the idea that any non-human race was fundamentally inferior. It was that pure arrogance that motivated them to keep slaves uneducated, terrified they might get smart enough to rebel. Now Rifen plans on using that same prejudice to his own advantage. Once the slaves start their lessons, Sea Vault is going to be shook by how quickly they learn. He might even get the bright idea to start educating his own. Because at the end of the day, skilled slaves are just more useful to their owners. If this idea spreads, it could literally change the entire continent, a feat Rifen failed to achieve in his past life. This is where the paradigm shift begins. Later back at their lodgings, our MC has a brain fart moment, realizing he gave all his cash to the trader and forgot to keep any for travel expenses. He sheepishly asks Salon if he has any spare coins he can lend him. The Slayer offers to return her new outfit for a refund, which sends the weirdo into a full-blown panic as he begs her not to. She just bursts out laughing. It's the first time she's truly laughed since she was enslaved, though the significance of the moment is completely lost on Rifen. The next morning, the city of Zeppelin is in total chaos when they find Tarek, the trade union leader, and Barre Karen's successor dead. Nobody has a clue who did it, and with everyone's stories being a jumbled mess, the case goes completely cold. Fast forward 2 weeks, and Father Salon is casting purification light on the cursed ruins, slicing through undead demons like it's nothing. Rifen can't help but think they're a pretty solid team. Maybe Salon's just matching his pace. Or maybe the kid's been training like this his whole life. He's low-key wondering how young this pretty boy was when he first stepped onto a battlefield, because he's way stronger than he looks. No cap, if Salon keeps leveling up like this, he's got the potential to blow past even Rifen's arch-nemesis Saintess Ellen. It makes him wonder why Salon wasn't a big name in his past life, or if he just died young from being overworked. The priest asks if these ruins are the ones they're looking for, the ruins of illusion. He points out that the monsters here are way tougher than the ones in Palton, but still easier than expected since they snuck in through the back. It's been a solid 2 weeks since they bounced from Chitan. They've finally made it to the Graham Kingdom right near the Seteliard Mountains, where the forgotten ruins of illusion are hidden. This is the spot where our guy is banking on getting his magic back. But at the entrance, the pretty boy points out, the door is magically sealed and brute force won't work. He gives Rifen a hard time saying he should have hired a mage, but Rifen just tells him to chill out and watch him work. Salon is absolutely shook when he learns this weirdo was actually a mage once. The idea of a martial mage, someone who's a beast with both combat aura and magic, is just completely blowing his mind. The kid starts yelling about how unfair it is since he's worked his butt off for barely any gains, but then he notices something. The hard-headed meat shield is gathering way too much mana for what should just be a simple 3-circle spell. After a full 30 minutes of intense concentration, the brute finally shatters the seal and gets the gate open, leaving the pretty boy still steaming. He warns the weirdo to never ever tell anyone he's a mage, because in his past life, Rifen was the world's first 10-circle mage. That's why he came here searching for a legendary artifact called Illusion's Voice, to get his magic back, but the ruins are completely empty. Our dude is seriously sulking, while Pretty Boy tries to tell him he can't always be the first to discover everything. He doesn't own every ruin on the continent. Still, it's super weird. Illusion wasn't supposed to be discovered for another 17 years, which means the future Rifen knows is starting to change. Trying to lighten the mood, Salon shows off something he found nihil in a magical arrow that shoots pure mana. The more you focus, the more shots you can fire. At first glance, it just looks like a normal stick, but it's actually a branch from the legendary Tree of Life in Elfenheim, and the Slayer Elf puts it to the test. She lets loose a single shot that completely obliterates a tree in seconds. Even disguised as a stick, this thing is no joke. She just calls it a great weapon, but Rifen's wondering how the pretty boy knew it was special, remembering it was Cyrus's go-to weapon in his past life. Sillin claims he'd only heard rumors and tells Rifen not to get so down since there are tons of other ruins to explore. But Rifen knows nothing else can replace Illusion's voice. It was the one and only artifact that could have restored his immense power. When they finally arrive in Galen Village, Pretty Boy is hyped to finally eat some food that wasn't cooked over a campfire. The chef is beaming as customers shower her cooking with praise. And she mentions how, about a week ago, some snobby noble knights were acting like food critics about her dishes. She happened to overhear them chatting about exploring some nearby ruins. This immediately gets the young lad's attention, and he leans in eager for more details. The woman explains that a viscount named Kelbaron showed up with an exploration team, but she got the vibe that most of the knights with him were a higher rank, including one guy decked out in shining golden armor from head to toe. But she adds that the Golden Knight was actually super nice. Hearing about golden armor and a golden sword, Rifen instantly knows who it is. That can only be Yusu's the Golden Knight, from the Graham Kingdom's prestigious Count Tennis family. A man starts praising Yusus. He's saying that clearing out all the monsters in the ruins is exactly what you'd expect from the legendary Golden Knight of Graham. Count Kelbrin chimes in, saying it was an honor to see his skills firsthand. Yusus Tennis, the Knight Commander, is a man of few words. He just reminds the Count that a third of the treasure goes to him, just like they agreed. That evening, Kelbrin is proudly bragging. He claims the real prize was getting to fight alongside Yusus, saying he couldn't care less about the artifacts, and Yusus can keep them all. The fancy lord figures he's already loaded, and that earning Sir Yusus's friendship is way more valuable. The stone-faced knight then asks a question. He wants to know what Kelbrin did with the adamantium and orichalcum. Kelbrin just laughs, saying he told the locals he'd forge them some weapons. Stone-faced Blondie seems impressed, mentioning the Kelbaron family is famous for mining and must have plenty of skilled dwarven smiths. While sipping his wine, the now flattered Viscount introduces his daughters to the Golden Knight, hoping to play matchmaker. He does this even though he knows Yusus is already married. The Alpha Knight politely shuts him down, but when the Viscount casually mentions a younger sibling, the stone-faced knight crushes his wine glass with zero chill, his eyes glaring daggers. He just growls back that he's got nothing, and the whole room goes dead silent as the Viscount tries to stammer out an apology. But then all hell breaks loose outside, and a messenger bursts in. The Count demands to know what's up. The guy screams that a demon just popped out of one of the relics, and no cap, it's Sophia Tan. Outside, the freaky monster is tearing through everyone. Soldiers and civilians are getting wrecked, but Yusuf stays totally chill, wondering if someone mixed a summoning artifact into the pile. He then curses some stupid jerk under his breath. A veteran warrior starts rallying the troops, shouting for civilians to be evacuated. He orders the mages to the back and the knights to form a shield wall. The mages hit Sephiaton with a massive ice spell, trapping it in place. The warrior then screams for his men to tie its legs and just hold the line until the commander shows up. But then he freezes, because Russ is already charging the demon head-on, yelling that nothing can stand in the way of a Tennis family sword. The cocky kid manages to slash its face, but Sephiaton just swats him away and then smashes the warrior who called him an idiot. Russ slams into the ground, head bleeding, whispering for his brother, just as Sir Euseus finally steps onto the scene. Euseus tells Sir Lot to forget about the morons and keep the formation tight. He then shoots Russ a look that could freeze fire and asks who the hell he thinks his brother is. He spits that the great knights of tennis don't come from stray mutts, and bruh, those words hit Russ right where it hurts. The Golden Knight then faces Sephiaton, a demon that no one without aura could even dream of fighting, and commands his armor Eldrad to awaken. A brilliant golden light completely engulfs his armor until he's shining from head to toe, ready to throw down with the otherworldly beast. Meanwhile, Father Silent is telling Iron Fist Ryfin all about Graham's legendary Golden Knight, Sir Eustace. He's totally shocked when the big guy admits he's never heard of him. Pretty Boy explains that Eustace is one of the most cracked magic swordsmen on the entire continent. He's on par with any aura user out there. Even Sirius has heard the stories. Then out of nowhere, Ryfin asks if Sirius is digging her new PJs, and she just nods. Silent argues that if Eustace's power just comes from a magic item, you can't really compare him to a true aura user. Ryfin corrects him, calling the magic armor Eldrad. He says it's the most OP armor of their time, but actually mastering it is a whole different ballgame. True Gold Eldrad, which is way rarer than True Silver Mithril, was used to forge both the magic armor Eldrad and the magic sword Eldrin. These are the top-tier relics from the Silver Age passed down through the Tennis family for generations. The magic swordsman who can wield both Eldrad and Eldrin gets the title of the Golden Knight. With a simple command, Eldrad unleashes an insane amount of power. It's enough to rival an aura user, but only if the person wearing it knows what they're doing. Back on the battlefield, the Golden Knight calls on his armor to become as light as a feather. Letting him ride the wind, Yusu charges straight at the demon in his full-plate armor and awakens his sword Eldrin. His 8th circle spell, Material Destruction, just sends everything into total chaos. Ryfin thinks to himself that while Tennis County figured out how to unlock Eldred's real power, having an OP weapon doesn't automatically make you the strongest. Silent notices that Ryfin seems to have a lot of respect for magic swordsmen, which is weird, because aura users usually look down on them. But the magic armor skills from Tennis County are just built different, surpassing most sword styles. On the field, the Golden Knight raises his blade, channeling the cry of a leopard and the senses of a dragon to pierce the eye of the god of death. Silent had heard that the Tennis family lost their ancient sword arts and had to rely on relics instead. But their family actually sees that as a huge plus. Pretty Boy points out that you can train your whole life and still never awaken your aura. But a Golden Knight 1 is born in every single generation. Eustace hits Sephiaton with a heatwave attack, and Silent knows that having an aura-class fighter every single generation is an insane advantage. Even for a magic swordsman with Eldrad, this is a tough fight. The Golden Knight summons a fog of cold snow. He drives his blade deep into Sephiaton, ordering it to disappear. With one last slash, the Golden Commander drops the demon for good. The soldiers erupt in cheers for his victory. Meanwhile, Ryfin is just lying in bed, wondering if that guy can really keep on winning. The big guy starts talking about going to get the artifact, and Silent gives him a serious look, asking if he's actually thinking about challenging the Count of Tennis himself. When Ryfin admits he wants to take it, Father Silent reminds him that back in Shotten's Principality, they worked together because Ryfin was in the right. But this time, Count Tennis was the one who explored the ruins. That means the artifact is his fair and square. Those words are like a slap in the face for Ryfin, making him realize that taking it would just make him a common thief. The guy sits up, struggling to figure out how to convince Silean without revealing his whole past life. He tells Pretty Face that there's something he needs to come clean about. He reminds her of that time he mentioned the Unbreakable Gym, recalling that its founder was a disciple of the Fist King Gerard. Ryfin explains that their school has some seriously intense trials as part of its teachings. The big dude adds that his master was the one who hid that artifact in the ruins, basically daring any of his disciples to be strong enough to go claim it. While Sirius is passed out like a log, the two of them keep talking. He admits it's a family tradition designed to forge disciples into something stronger, because his clan is full of a bunch of roughnecks. Skinny Doll listens as Rifen spins a story about how Master Gerard explored the Illusion ruins a while back. He says Gerard never even touched the Silver Age loot inside, and Hardhead chimes in that those artifacts were just participation trophies for the disciples. Rifen adds, Gerard wouldn't have known what Nihilin was unless he got a heads up, and Ceylon's just like, yeah, that tracks. No cap, nobody could possibly know those details if the ruins were really on lockdown. Ponyboy totally eats it up. Loki Rifen feels a bit guilty for bending the truth so much, but it isn't a total lie. He swears he'd never just jack someone's stuff, no matter how fire those Silver Age relics are. Rifen's sweating bullets trying to keep his cool. He knows he's got to secure that artifact no matter the cost. Over by the manor, Sir Lot is gassing up Sir Yusef for deleting the demon, Sephiaton. That thing got absolutely steamrolled by the Golden Knight. Yusef, with zero chill, just tells everyone to pack it up and leaves the rest for Sir Lot to handle. Before he bounces, Yusef throws shade, saying a swordsman who only has one move isn't worthy of the tennis name. Russ, still on his knees, quietly insists that he is a swordsman of tennis, and he doesn't care what Yusef thinks. The next morning, Russ is grinding hard in the practice yard when two soldiers roll up on him. One of them demands to know why he pulled that wild stunt the day before. Russ calmly explains he was just trying to take out the demon. The soldier fires back, asking if he was ordered to, or if he's just terrible at following commands. He was told to wait for the captain after all. Russ shoots them a death glare, reminding them he's a swordsman of tennis, and challenges them to a duel. If they've got an issue, they can settle it right there. The pair just sneer, call him a filthy mutt, and walk off. Russ gets back to his drills. His blade slices the air in a perfect downward arc. His timing is so cracked that the movement is almost instantaneous. Any master would have to give him props for that one strike. But beyond that downward slash and its breathing technique, the rest of his swordplay is a complete train wreck. The House of Tennis lost its secret sauce ages ago, even though as a noble line of knights, they once had their own legendary techniques. But Russ never learned a single one. A flashback hits, and he remembers his father teaching him only the absolute basics. That was before the vassal stepped in, claiming bastard kids didn't deserve proper training. In the end, his father gave him one last thing, a tiny piece of the great sword path their family once mastered, the true key to awakening one's aura. His dad bet everything that little Russ could revive their legendary power, and Russ refuses to let that hope die. The tennis blade, which used to be OP, now only exists as this one downward slash trash to everyone else, but it's everything to him. Sir Yusef, the Golden Knight, watches Russ train, totally convinced the kid is a one-trick pony who won't last long. The rest of that legendary sword path is long gone. Still watching Russ sweat it out, he has to admit the kid's a natural. That night, Rifen is complaining to himself about having to sneak around like a cat burglar, even in his second life. With his mask on, he hops a fence near the Viscount's castle, figuring the guy's booming mining business must have paid for this insane fortress. It's got that high-end dwarven construction. After knocking out the entrance guards, our sneaky boy slips inside. One soldier mutters that with the Golden Knight on their side, no one would be dumb enough to invade. His buddy points out the knights from the capital are pretty stacked too, but the first guy insists their lord is just built different. He hears a faint sound, but just writes it off as his imagination. Meanwhile, our boy is hugging the wall, thinking that real thieves must have a good reason for crawling on ceilings all the time. At this point, he figures this thievery gig isn't so bad, and maybe he's actually kinda good at it. He clocks the guys in the fancy armor and guesses they've gotta be tennis knights. So, taking them out silently is going to be a real challenge. One guard spots him, but Rifen knows submission holds are the go-to for a quiet knockout. After he ties them up, he feels a motion barrier and a heat detection spell super annoying since he can't just turn it off. But every magical barrier needs a power source. He quickly finds a rock covered in runes, smashes it to pieces, and slides into a warehouse packed with secret treasures. The place has everything from a sealing jar to an infinity bag, and even a heavenly harp. He skips most of it, grumbling about who organized this mess. That is until a Helton blade catches his eye. But wait, it's actually a Talid sword, looks similar but hits different. Then he sees it, the thing he came for, the Elysian's voice. As he steps closer, a simple thread trap snaps and he completely freezes. This dude really thought his life was over after getting outplayed by a simple piece of string. Bruh. Alarms are blaring through the entire castle, sending Viscount Kelburn into a full-blown panic as his wife looks on, terrified. Word just came down the intruders already in the southern tower. Meanwhile, Rifen is absolutely kicking himself. After getting past every single deadly trap in this place, he gets caught by something so incredibly basic. He's seriously thinking he should leave the whole thieving business to the actual professionals from now on. Bolting at top speed, he barrels through the waves of soldiers, trying his best not to send them to the afterlife. but he's low-key, struggling to hold back his real power. Outside knights and mages have joined forces, unleashing a wall of flames with orders to take him down. But our boy has zero chill and snags a nearby guard mid-sprint. After muttering a quick, "my bad," he promptly uses the poor guy as a human shield to block a massive fireball. The soldier gets instantly barbecued by the mages, and the whole squad starts screaming about what a monster Rifen is, but he just shrugs it off. He even points out that the soldier's armor was blessed anyway. Just then a knight fires a volley of arrows, which he blocks only to see the heated metal melt on contact. In seconds, the molten metal morphs into chains, wrapping him up tight. He figures they're trying to capture him, not kill him, and he's got to admit their teamwork isn't half bad. Someone in the distance yells for Sir Gahar to advance while another mage is ordered to cast Flame Arc. Yeah, Rifen knows he's in deep trouble now. If regular-ass knights are just slinging around that kind of magic, he's screwed. Suddenly, some hothead named Russ tosses his shield aside and charges right in. He's roaring about giving this sneaky intruder a taste of his sword, but a Sir Lot is shouting for him to hold his position. Rifen has literally no idea who this guy is. Lot keeps ordering Russ to stay in formation, but this dude isn't listening to anyone. He's just bulldozing through his own comrades to get to the intruder, and Rifen is watching him with a critical eye. His breathing, his footwork, his swing, it all looks completely average, and yet something about that strike just hits different. In a single motion, Russ's swing shatters Rifen's magical chains. But before the knight can even start celebrating, Rifen's fist slams right into his gut, sending him flying backwards. Even as he's flying, the kid notes that for all that power, the intruder couldn't dodge the swing, proving he's not a perfectly balanced fighter. Suddenly, the Golden Knight of Graham appears on the scene, launching an attack that Rifen blocks like it was absolutely nothing. The Golden Boy instantly gets it. This guy's skills are on a completely different level than some common thief. When Rifen claims he has his reasons for being there, Isis tells him he can explain later. Living up to his motto, he's here to strike first and ask questions, never. Rifen charges at the Golden Knight, and the two of them explode into a fierce clash, dodging and countering each other's attacks flawlessly. As they circle and disengage, the surrounding soldiers are just watching in stunned silence, not even sure what kind of battle they're witnessing. Rifen realizes he just made a potentially fatal move, and even the Golden Knight has to admit his own strategy isn't working. A massive wave of energy begins to surge around the blondie. As his howling shadow technique grows in power, he roars that he will become the shadow of the abyss itself. But Isus is left completely shook when Rifen just casually deflects the howling shadow, showing an insane mastery of magic. Our boy even admits he knows pretty much every spell in the book. After that, Rifen starts dodging all of Isus' strikes with ridiculous ease. A powerful attack still manages to shake his armor with windy arrows, and flames prompting Isus to call on his spirit Eldron to attack with its full strength. When a gigantic blast of fire comes hurtling his way, Rifen realizes that no cap he might actually die at this rate. The explosion is huge, and as the smoke clears, Rifen is genuinely shocked to see the level of destruction. Turns out this Golden Boy can sling high-level magic too. Isus is just as floored that this absolute menace managed to block it without a single scratch. He can't wrap his head around how anyone could take a hit like that. And not just take it, but be perfectly fine. He never even saw the guy move to dodge. For someone with superhuman vision, the Golden Knight starts to wonder, could this criminal actually be an aura user? He follows up with an acid mist, but Rifen just shreds it with a casual gust of wind. Then the masked man closes the distance in a flash and slams a brutal punch into Isus' stomach before he can react, which all but confirms the knight's suspicion. This intruder is definitely an aura user. Rifen unloads a storm of punches, but the Golden Knight manages to block every single strike with his sword. Realizing he completely misjudged the man's skill, Isis is forced to switch up his tactics. Now that he knows he's facing an aura user, it's a completely different kind of fight. He shouts that his blade loses none of its power against aura. Still, our muscle-bound MC grits his teeth, knowing that aura users are a massive pain in the neck. But then again, magic can be just as irritating. The commotion draws everyone's attention, and Isus remarks that it all makes sense. He says that only someone on the level of an aura user could pull off such a bold crime. Rifen, for his part, is stunned. He can't believe the Golden Knight actually figured him out. He hasn't been using his signature golden aura because it's way too flashy and would give him away instantly. And he sure as hell isn't about to start now just because this blondie noticed something was up. Isus finds it super strange that someone with this level of power isn't showing their aura at all. He comes to the conclusion that this sneaky guy must have only recently awakened his power. If that's the case, he's no real match. With that, he asks Eldron for permission to unleash his full power and destroy everything. Ryfin can tell this is about to get seriously dangerous as the light of Eldrin gathers to overwhelm him. But then he spots a familiar golden glow and silently thanks the gods. He's thankful that Isus is the one known as the Golden Knight. When the devastating strike finally comes, our big guy braces himself and shields with a spiral guard. He tanks the full blast head on. A golden light just blows up, and when the smoke settles, Sir Eustace is completely shook that the intruder actually blocked the light of Eldril. Rocky's spiral guard was just a split second too late, so he's a little banged up, but the intruder just leaps right off the roof. He vanishes without a trace, and Eustace tries to give chase, but Sir Lot calls him up asking what the hell he's doing. The commander tells Lot to go check the relic chamber. He wants to know if anything was stolen and says to get a search party together, making it clear this intruder isn't getting away. When Lot asks if the target's been taken out, the Golden Knight just scoffs, saying it'll take way more than that to put him down. Elsewhere, Cirrus shakes Cylon awake, saying she has a really bad feeling about Ryfin. Meanwhile, our boy is sinking into some deep, dark water. By morning, Cirrus is full-on parkouring across the rooftops. She's dragging Cylon behind her as people on the street scream that there's a thief on the loose. Cylon's just grumbling about it. He complains that being hauled around like this is a major blow to his ego. A random bystander snitches on them to a knight, and soon enough every knight in the area has their eyes locked on Cyrus. They're all shouting that she's cornered and has nowhere else to go. But just then, the Slayer uses her Nihilene to just yeet the guards away. The Golden Knight hears all the chaos and asks Sir Lot what's popping off. Lot explains that they're dealing with someone way above your average criminal, so Eustace draws his own sword, deciding he's gotta handle this himself. Meanwhile, Cyrus calls out to Cylon, who's getting ready to be carried by the Slayer again. He's cracking jokes, asking when Ryfin is going to teach him his workout routine. In a flash, she dodges Eustace's Blade of the Wind and immediately recognizes him as the Golden Knight of Graham. Eustace is stunned, wondering how an elf got her hands on one of his rare swords, not to mention why a high-ranking priest is with her. This whole situation tells him these aren't just common thieves. Cylon can't believe that idiot actually got himself captured. Suddenly, the Golden Knight blitzes in, tossing Cyrus aside as the situation gets heated. Now, Cyrus is facing off against the legendary Golden Knight, a fight she was definitely not ready for. At the same time, Ryfin wakes up feeling like he got run over by a freight train. He's in some unknown location, realizing it was a low IQ move to pick a fight with a dude wearing the world's most OP armor. He's still shackled and wrapped up in bandages, but at least he managed to yoink the Illusion's Voice relic. Now he's just trying to figure out where the heck he is. An old dwarf named Hethos shows up asking if he's alright, and can eat even though it looks like getting up is going to be a whole ordeal. Ryfin tells him he's fine, so Hethos sends Miss Tilla to grab some barley porridge. Turns out Tilla, the Steelhammer, might look like a kid, but she's a full-grown, battle-hardened dwarf warrior. She puts the bowl down in front of him, and our muscle-bound MC thinks it's kinda sus how friendly these dwarves are being to a human. That kind of thing almost never happens. His doubts are confirmed when the elder, who is actually a priest of Alpath named Gelfide, walks in. He's thrilled to see that their so-called savior is finally awake. Gelfide explains that 6 years ago, their great priest got a divine message from Alpath himself, saying a man with a body of steel and a mind to match would appear. This guy would come through the dark path, carrying the tears of the northern wind, and was destined to change their very fate. In simple dwarf terms, it meant a super swole, big-brain dude would come floating out of an ice cave. So, their orders were to save him and treat him like he's the chosen one. The priest even spread the prophecy all over the continent. Ever since that day, Gelfide has waited every winter for this legendary figure to finally show up. Ryfin just lets out a nervous laugh, realizing that Alpath totally came in clutch for him. You see, Alpath is the god of the dwarves, and he's known for dropping these divine messages every now and then. 6 years ago, at the exact moment Ryfin was sent back in time, Alpath sent out this prophecy. No cap, this god has got some next-level delivery service. Ryfin can't believe Alpath has his back again, especially after he fumbled so hard the first time around. He's beyond grateful for the god's trust. He swears he's going to do things right this time. When asked, Gelfide insists that Alpath never makes mistakes. So, everything they've done has been for their savior. Miss Tilla then points out how insanely fast Ryfin is healing, and our tough guy credits the little warrior. She blushes, saying she just made some porridge for him. He grins back, certain that a good meal is the secret to a speedy recovery. The little powerhouse then asks if she should go get the priest. Gelfide apparently has something important to discuss with him, but Ryfin insists he'll find Gelfide himself. Tilla isn't having any of that, and ends up acting as his crutch, which totally weirds him out to have this tiny, jacked warrior leading the way. The The Steelhammer tribe are mountain dwarves who were enslaved by the Kelbaran 6th County, but they still hold on tight to their traditions and faith. Unlike orcs or elves, dwarves are only enslaved for their insane technical skills that humans just can't replicate. It's like they can hear Mother Earth whispering to them, telling them where all the best mineral veins are. They're sold in family units, which helps them work better and keep their culture alive. That even includes their priests, and it's how they've helped build entire empires. They're the only ones who truly get how society is run from the ground up. Tila drops a bombshell. There's a total of 60 of them, all owned by Viscount Kelburn, with most of the men forced to work in the settled mountain mines. To prevent any funny business, the humans are holding their families hostage, news that makes Riffin low-key apologize for even asking. Just then, Gelfid shows up to greet their savior. But Riffin flips the script, thanking them for helping him recover and telling the old dwarf to just call him Riffin. The priest confesses he doesn't really get why Riffin is supposed to be the chosen one, only that the big guy clearly doesn't see dwarves as slaves. No cap, he's always treated them as equals, but changing the destiny for an entire species, that's a whole different ballgame. Gelfid has no idea why Alpoth chose a human, but they're still clinging to the Oracle's promise. They're banking on the fact that somehow this man is meant to save them. For now, Riffin figures all he can do is play along. The old dwarf is studying him with a look that says he already knows Riffin is their destined hero. Shaking it off, our boy asks what Gelfid wanted to chat about. The priest reveals that the great priest, Alpath's High Priest Michelin, wants to meet him, the guy who's basically the backbone of all dwarves. Riefenhart can't help but crack a smile, remembering that Michelin was already a high priest 30 years ago. Gelfid is worried that this hard-headed human might think this is all a load of crap, since humans can't hear the sound of truth. He's relieved when our absolute unit of an MC stays cool and understanding. In his past life, he watched the Emperor's empire fall, and he's terrified it could happen again, so meeting the wise Michelin might just spark a better plan. Gelfid explains that Michelin is at the Grand Forge Allpath's Great Temple, a place so secret only a few dwarves know it exists, so they'll need a guide. And Miss Tila, who has the last of the tribe's warrior blood, is ready to lead him. But Gelfid can't help but notice how much this strange guy already seems to know. He can practically hear Riffin's thoughts, catching hints that our MC was already aware of their high priest and the Grand Forge. The old dwarf sighs, saying most humans avoid talking to dwarves, who can hear the sound of truth. When Riffin admits he knows about that too, Gelfid's curiosity goes through the roof. He just has to ask how much he knows, but our boy simply apologizes. He says it's not the right time to spill the tea. All of a sudden, Hethos bursts in, totally panicking, and asks if Riffin has any companions. A young boy and an elf. He reports they've been captured and tossed into Viscount Kelburn's castle. Back at the fortress, Golden Boy is losing his mind. He's ordering everyone to hunt down the thief no matter the cost. Eustace tells the men to ditch their honor and use whatever torture is needed to make them talk. The Golden Knight is stunned to see a mere elf wielding an advanced magic sword, the kind of weapon fit only for a knight captain or higher. And that's not all. There's also a Phalanis priest who's packing enough divine power to rival an archbishop. Fired up to figure out their deal, he orders a couple of weirdos to handle the torture. Boris and Lento aren't sure if they're supposed to hurt or just unalive the captives. The orders are clear though, so they grit their teeth and get on with it. Boris volunteers to start the torture session, and Lento doesn't object. 30 minutes later, both of them are sitting through a lecture from Father Sillon, listening intently as he explains that Riffin's martial clan is, let's just say, a bit extra. He drops the legendary name of Jim Unbreakable, the clan of the indomitable martial King Gerard, and starts going over their insane training regimen. The two morons can't even get a word in. Salon points out that all of this is just for training, something regular humans could never possibly handle. The pretty-faced priest frowns, insisting these warriors didn't go through all that harsh training for nothing. He grumbles that their last exam was completely ridiculous. Apparently, they were supposed to retrieve a relic, but the Tennis household had already gotten their hands on it. Salon then explains that failure is not an option in their clan. The skinny priest spills that Riffin decided to just yoink the relic anyway, since it originally belonged to Jim Unbreakable. He points out that the Martial King never expected the Tennis household to find the relic, so their innocence is obvious, especially considering how little is known about the ancient ruins. He adds that he only went along with the plan after our boy's story started making sense. Barras is completely baffled watching their captive just spill all the tea without a single moment of torture. Eventually, the priest's throat gets all dry. He eagerly lunges for the water Salon hands him. Barras just wonders if it's really okay for the priest to be revealing all this. He questions whether the guy is being loyal to his friend. The wimpy priest insists none of it is worth keeping under wraps. Boris worries that if the world finds out, the Martial King's successor committed theft, his reputation would be ruined. But Father Salon just points out that if he actually cared about his image, he wouldn't have risked the heist in the first place. Getting curious, the guard asks if they know where the relic is now. Salon admits they've just been waiting at the final destination, which makes Barras absolutely freak out. When they demand a contact, Dollface calmly replies that no self-respecting aura user would ever mess up a simple job like stealing. Barras has to begrudgingly admit she has a point, while the weirdo just wonders if this is how all interrogations are supposed to be. The others can tell something is just not right, and later on Miss Tilla gives the redhead props for tracking the deer so fast. But Riefin just brushes it off like it's no big deal for an aura user. He explains that the secret is just to stretch out your senses and follow the signs, a skill that would make any pro hunter green with envy. He double-checks if they're still inside Kelburn territory, where hunting is a big no-no. Tila has zero chill about minor rules, and that remark really hits different for Riefin, making him realize he can't let little laws get in his way. Especially not if he's serious about freeing the other species from this world. Even if it's breaking the law, one thing's for sure. He's got to get his strength back, and fast. The moment he takes a bite of the meat, Tilla notices. She sees his muscles pulsing with a golden aura, and wonders if he's actually healing himself. Riefin tests his power with a quick shadow punch into the air. The sheer force of it totally freaks her out, and he proudly declares he's back to 100%. From a window, Graham's golden knight Yusu's Tennis is watching this all go down. He's absolutely certain it wasn't a coincidence that this rugged dude picked out that one specific relic among all the others. A memory from a month ago suddenly plays in his mind. Some guy had come up to Sir Yusus, flashed the symbol of the Sage of Silver, and basically challenged him to recognize it. He was testing if Yusus was really the true heir of Count Tennis. On the day Yusus was officially made the successor, his father dropped a massive family secret on him about an ancient order known as the Sage of Silver. These sages were so cracked with power that they could topple entire nations like a house of cards. Their wisdom and knowledge were light years ahead of anything in modern times. They operate from the shadows, only showing up when humanity is on the brink of disaster. Get this, even a king is considered just a mid-tier member in their ranks. Yusus bowed low as the Sage of Silver presented him with a scroll officially entrusting the exploration of the illusion ruins to the Tennis family. The sage laid claim to all the relics inside, but said he only needed one specific item, Illusion's voice. If Yusus can't get it, the entire Tennis family's fate is on the line, and that heavy thought is weighing on him big time. Back in the present, Barras and Lento show up to report they're done with the two prisoners. Their stories seem to line up, but something about it just feels sketchy. That detail immediately gets Yusus's attention. Down at the gate, a soldier sees Drain shaking, clearly still traumatized from the chaos of the day before. Bruh, none of them signed up to wake up to a scene straight out of a nightmare. As regular grunts, they know. They wouldn't last a second against a dude who can literally crush full-plate armor with his bare hands. Drain sends up a silent prayer that he never has to face that monster again. They've pieced together that the relic was stolen, and since Sir Yusus has the thief's buddies locked up, they figure the guy might actually come back for them. With a deep sigh, Drain just hopes that if the man does return, he'll knock them out quick, like he did before. And right on cue, his friend notices a spooky figure getting closer. It's the fist guy whispering the words Calamity Horn. At that exact moment, Yusu learns that the thief is part of a crew called Jim Unbreakable. He can't figure out why in the world the Sage of Silver would want anything to do with him. Blondie isn't buying their story for a second. But the thing that really messes with his head is seeing Salon, a pilgrim and a high-ranking priest whose power is on par with a bishop. There's no way this dude is a highly trained spy. To Blondie, it's way easier to believe the kid's story and assume these two are just low-level pawns. He figures they'll probably just be left behind anyway. So, the big question now is how to actually capture the thief. Going in with full force is an option. But even if they did that, there's no guarantee they'd get Illusion's voice back. Suddenly, a massive blast rips through the air. It startles the Golden Knight, who immediately knows what's up. The thief heard his friends were here and has come back for them. A huge explosion throws the castle into total chaos as Barras screams for the Tennis Knights to show him what they're really made of. He swears this fight won't be a repeat of last night, but the Man of Steel fires back that he's built different now too. Sir Lot orders Barras and Lento to charge in, but it's useless as a single punch from Riefin sends them both flying through the air. Our tank calmly explains that shields are completely worthless against aura attacks and that these knights have absolutely zero experience. They have no idea how to fight a real aura user. Out of nowhere, the mages whip out their so-called priest's protection, cursing the thief for taking out Barras and Lento. But this absolute unit just smacks these scrubs aside, stomping the ground so hard, the shockwave alone sends them all flying. The mages unleash a volley of ice flame arrows and a lightning storm, but Rifen drops them all with a series of rapid-fire aura bullets. As they're being blasted away, they're screaming curses at him. He just thinks that mages this skilled should be able to handle a little bit of poor pain. He figures at least one or two of them will survive. Next, he sets his sights on the priests who start yelling at him to fight like a proper aura user. They're whining about him using cowardly tactics of all things. Rifen genuinely can't believe the audacity of these clowns ganging up on him, just for them to call him the coward. The regular soldiers just watch in pure terror as he snatches up Father Lauren, who's already pleading for his life. Rifen knows some of these holy dudes are built different and power up when they take damage, so instead of playing games, he just puts him to sleep with one clean hit. With one priest down, his sights are now locked on Father Smard, all while the soldiers are scrambling, trying desperately to get a handle on this absolute menace. They're all completely shook because this thief's power level is off the charts today. This is the raw, unfiltered energy of a legit aura user, and that's when Sirloth finally spots their own wild card. He sees Russ just standing on the field and totally loses it, screaming about what the hell he thinks he's doing. He's fuming, calling him an idiot for always rushing headfirst into every single fight. The one time he's actually told to stay put, Russ is just hanging back. Sirloth is so disgusted he's seriously considering kicking this bastard out of the family the second they get home. But Russ isn't being a coward. He's completely frozen, just mesmerized by the thief's aura, which is blazing around him like a personal sun. This guy is controlling and boosting his power at will, and for the first time ever, Russ can perfectly read his enemy's energy and predict his every move. It's a whole new level of insight no one ever bothered to teach him. He gets it now. The thief's breathing his flow. It all belongs to someone who's at the absolute pinnacle of martial. No cap, this dude has reached the final boss level of fighting. With his mind completely blown, Russ suddenly gets a flash of inspiration on exactly how he's supposed to move in a high-level fight like this. He's totally in awe of the thief's flawless technique, all while our boy, the Iron Fist, continues to absolutely body the soldiers. Before long, Rifen spots the main event commander Sir Yusus flexing with his legendary Eldrad. This golden-haired pretty boy starts demanding to know what Rifen did to his knights, but Rifen just shoots him a grin and starts clowning the serious-looking blonde. He's like, "Bruh, why are you pretending you just got here? I know you've been creeping behind that wall the whole time." That little jab really gets under Yusus's skin. Yusus is bugging out, wondering how this guy could possibly know. Rifen smirks, thinking to himself that while the magic armor might give Yusus aura-level strength, it definitely doesn't give him the senses to back it up. He pieces it together. Yusus wanted to test his power, but using his own men as crash test dummies, that's some cold-blooded stuff. That whole move doesn't exactly vibe with the fair and just golden knight persona the streets are talking about, and Yusus is practically grinding his teeth to dust. The soldiers nervously try to deny it, saying their commander would never do something like that. But this hard-headed MC points out the obvious. There's zero other reason for this fancy knight to show up so late. He says the dude could have been mid-shower and still made it to the fight faster than this. Yusus, who's clearly furious, claims he just overslept, but Rifen isn't buying that weak excuse for a second. Nobody could sleep through a damn wall being blown to bits. He even cracks a joke asking if the knight's some kind of sleeping beauty. That's the final straw. Yusus whips out his Eldrad, ready to throw hands. Vowing to make the thief pay for disrespecting the tennis name, he transforms into the Golden Knight, and our MC braces himself for a real fight. In an instant, Yusus leaps at our buff MC, calling on the flow of purity to power up his blade. Rifen gets hyped up, wondering if that's the legendary sword of pure mana. It's the perfect counter for his own aura. Yusus strikes with full force, and the clash of fist against steel echoes through the area. Rifen knows he's tough, but even his body can't just tank a magic sword. Yet as Yusus' slash comes screaming in Rifen's spiral guard, flares to life and blocks it cold. And just like that, the tables have turned. Meanwhile, back in the prison, Cyrus and Father Salon hear the absolute chaos outside and wonder how long it's been going on. The Slayer girl guesses it's probably Rifen coming to rescue them, and Salon immediately starts teasing her for pretending she doesn't care. She's totally buying it though, and the teasing makes her blush. As they eat, Cyrus zones out, genuinely puzzled about why Rifen is so kind to her. Scylla just jokes that the big guy must have a serious thing for elves. At first, Cyrus admits she thought he was just some dude who was really into role-playing, and the doll-faced guy agrees he totally gives off that vibe. But when she remembers the intense way he looks at her, she knows his reasons aren't that simple. The Pilgrim Boy says that all this talk about him being special and different from other guys is exactly what women say when they're falling in love, right before they get married and curse their husbands' names. Or at least that's the hot take he got from the nun at his orphanage. Cyrus is just sitting there thinking what kind of nun teaches a kid something like that when Sillon suddenly snaps. He starts cussing out Rifan for dragging them all into this mess. He grumbles that if Rifan was going to steal something, he should have at least been more careful about it. Still, the Slayer elf notices something. He doesn't actually seem to resent Rifan. What's really bugging the pretty boy is that by agreeing to the job, he became an accomplice. He feels guilty for not stopping the muscle-bound MC, but he knows they can't just live by the law forever if they want to make it. He mentions he'll be 20 next year, only 3 years younger than Rifan, and Cirrus is genuinely surprised by how mature he sounds. Then she practically chokes when she does the math and realizes they're only 3 years apart. She had been thinking Sillon was at least 20 years younger than her. The pretty boy jokes that a comment like that could hurt his feelings enough to make him cry. Right then, Miss Tilla bursts into the cell. She immediately asks if their names are Sillon and Cyrus. She tells them she works for Riefenhart, and that they need to escape like right now. Sillon is stunned, while Cyrus's first move is to confirm that Tilla is in fact a dwarf. The pretty boy notes that besides her ears, she looks completely human. Ciri's cracking up, calling him a naive kid, literally seconds after praising his maturity, but as they're sneaking away, a soldier clocks his partners in crime. Before things can pop off, Ciri drops the guy with a clean kick, instantly switching into combat mode, as another soldier lunges from behind her. But Tilla is already on it. She blocks the attack and just yeets the dude like he's nothing, leaving our Slayer elf completely shook by the dwarf's raw power. Tilla just flashes a grin, bragging that dwarves are built different, and tells them they need to bounce like right now. Meanwhile, over with Rifan, he's still locked in a hardcore one-on-one with the Golden Knight, feeling pretty confident that Tilla has already handled her business. Yusu sees the thief peek toward the underground prison. Suddenly it clicks for him. He wonders if this whole fight is just a massive diversion. The Iron Fist smirks, basically telling him there's no way he'd be going this hard if something huge wasn't on the line. Power just starts exploding around him as he finally stops holding back. The Golden Boy is straight up rattled, realizing this thief wasn't even using his full strength this entire time. Eustace makes his move. He slashes with Eldred, trying to cut Rifan clean in two, but our guy flips out of the way and counters with a massive blow. The hit sends the Golden Knight staggering backward. Dead set on flipping the script, Eustace faces a non-stop barrage of attacks. As our MC powers up another punch and slams it into the ground, sending out shockwaves, Eustace has to dodge for his life again. When Eustace unleashes a move called Eldred's Cry, Rifan charges right in for a gut punch, only to hit absolutely nothing. Turns out the Golden Knight has leveled up and is finally taking this fight seriously. All of a sudden, 5 mirror images of Eustace pop up, completely surrounding Rifan. And the crazy part, every single one of them feels like the real deal. Rifan, who Loki thought Eustace was trash against aura users, gets a massive reality check. This isn't some cheap illusion. No, this is a high-tier mage technique. The Golden Boy is way more cracked than he ever gave him credit for. All 5 clones unleash a material destruction spell, but Rifan spots the real one in a split second and sends him flying with a punch. Eustace is totally bugging out. The old soul inside Rifan almost pities the kid for not realizing that a true master can literally read the subtle flow of mana. The Golden Boy screams that the Sword of Tennies has never known defeat and launches another attack. But Rifan's Spiral Guard just demolishes his ice spell tanks, a volley of wind arrows, and completely nullifies the Breath of Corrosion without a single scratch. Our guy just hits him with a cocky grin, flexing hard. He keeps showing off his Spiral Guard, while Eustace is losing his mind trying to figure out how this meathead can counter every single element he throws. Most aura users can't even use Spiral Guard, and it's not because it's that difficult. It's because the technique is almost stupidly simple. Sure, they can coat their bodies in aura for defense, but trying to circulate it at the same time would rip them apart from the inside. Only members of the Unbreakable Gym have the physique to even handle it. Rifan knows it chugs a ridiculous amount of aura, but he's got more than enough to spare. Sir Eustace is absolutely seething. He demands to know who Rifan's sponsor is. In response, the Iron Fist just casually steps aside, revealing one of his underlings. This just makes Eustace feel like he's being completely clowned on. Furious, he calls on Eldred to awaken and unleash its light, and that's when Rifan senses some real danger. Rifan decides it's time to bust out his strongest move. As the Golden Knight charges forward with a blinding light, the Iron Fist meets him head-on with a quadruple layer. Calamity Horn. The Golden Knight thrusts his blade forward and the Iron Fist meets it straight on. Their ultimate moves collide in a cataclysmic explosion. Outside the Viscount's castle, absolute chaos erupts as the Golden Knight takes the full force of the Calamity Horn. His armor starts to spiderweb with cracks as he screams, demanding to know what kind of broken skill could just shred his guard. Rifan's layered attack creates these repeated, crushing shockwaves, and the swirling force just tears Eustace's defenses to ribbons. But he realizes the big guy only has one blast left. Eustace refuses to back down, but our hero's final punch smashes through every last defense and slams him straight into the wall. When the smoke clears, Eldred is stuck in the ground while Sir Loth stares completely stunned that the Sword of Tennis has actually been defeated. Eldred's magic is tied to the sword itself, so as long as the blade's okay, the armor will eventually regenerate. It might take a solid 6 months, though. The thief picks up the sword, making Eustace think he's about to steal it. But instead, the Iron Fist just hands it over to Loth with an apology, explaining that the stolen artifact was the only thing he was after. Loth is genuinely surprised that he fought without a shred of greed. Rifan secretly thinks to himself that Cyrus would go nuts for a sword like Eldred, but he'd much rather give her the divine light sword Messiah. Just as he's about to dip, Eustace suddenly shouts that the Sword of Tennis isn't down for the count yet. Loth is about to disown this dude on the spot, while our muscle-bound hero remembers this loudmouthed brat. The kid insists that since he's still standing, it means the Sword of Tennis is too. As Roos comes charging in, Rifen is low-key unbothered knowing the kid's got a predictable downward swing, but then a flash of blue energy just blasts him backward. Bruh, he's actually shook when he feels a cut on his body, which is supposed to be practically invincible. In a split second, it hits him. That's Blade Aura. Russ stands there puffed up with pride, announcing he's finally lived up to his family name, the tennis sword, as the Blade Aura glows a 6 sky blue. That glow totally sparks a memory for Rifen, taking him back to the legend of Sword Saint Cyrus, the dude who once took on the Demon King. He can't help himself and just blurts out the name Sword Saint Cyrus, and that completely throws Russ for a loop. Turns out his real knighted name is Cyrus von Tennis. He's always been stuck with his birth name Roos, given by his mother, which everyone ignored because of his low status. Rifen feels a little guilty for not putting 2 and 2 together sooner. The Tennis household is famous for the Golden Knight, and now 30 years later, a new legend is born. Once the Sword Saint officially rises, their family is set to get a massive promotion to the rank of Marquis. This is despite the old family shame of a swordsman using magic gear, which is exactly why Rifen didn't recognize the Golden Knight, at first anyway. In his past life, the dude was basically a forgotten footnote in history. The future Sword Saint actually blushes hearing himself called by that epic title. Our Man of Steel just plays it cool, shrugging it off and saying he must have gotten Russ mixed up with someone else. Now the brat just looks bummed out. He's wearing his heart on his sleeve, and Mr. Tough Guy remembers the legendary Cyrus being cold as ice and super distant. Guess people really do change. Russ cuts the chit-chat and rushes in again with his Blade Aura, only to get a nasty punch to the gut that he somehow just tanks. The kid is shocked, but he figures out that Rifen must have used his own aura to absorb the blow, and even compliments his skill, admitting it's pretty impressive for someone who just awakened their power. The seasoned soldier can sense this idiot is about to go absolutely feral and decides to back off. Cyrus attacks again with insane speed, his moves being completely impossible for Rifen to see coming. Even for the future King of Fists, Riefenhart, reading Cyrus's moves is a no-go. Every single strike is coming from some bizarre angle. No fighter would ever expect it. Usually fighting follows set patterns, styles passed down through generations. Kinda like the unbreakable gym style that Grandpa Gerard drilled into him. But this kid, he fights like a wild animal. He has no formal stance, zero rhythm, nothing. That should make him an easy target, but somehow there isn't a single opening to exploit. Rifen thinks back on the old rumors that the Sword Saint's genius was a once-in-a-century kind of thing, and now he's seeing it firsthand. A flashback hits him, and he remembers Cyrus bragging about how he single-handedly slayed the 4 heavenly kings. Even the claim about taking down the great orc warrior Tathid had stunned Rifen back in the day. But watching Cyrus fight now, he's a believer. No cap. Now that he's been reborn, Mr. Fist realizes his old rival Tathid's nemesis is standing right in front of him. Getting totally fired up, he smashes right through Roos's blade. He shatters the aura with one punch, leaving the kid absolutely stunned. Still, Roos raises his sword again, declaring he is the Sword of Tennis. His downstrike, an attack he's spent years perfecting, carries the raw will to literally split the sky. It's the spirit of a man who was destined to be Rifen's rival once again, and Rifen is determined to shut that destiny down. Rifen drives a brutal fist straight into his gut, quietly saying his goodbyes. But Cyrus somehow refuses to fall. The kid is on his knees, barely able to breathe, but he's still calling himself the Sword of Tanus, the one who never gives up. Rifen gets the sudden urge to just finish him. It would be so easy to stop a future threat before it even gets started. but a tiny voice in his head tells him to chill out, not because Cyrus is some innocent kid, but because taking this W might just steal his boy Tathid's chance at his own long-awaited revenge. He realizes his true role here is to give Tathid a rival worthy of a legend. So, Rifen spares Cyrus, hoping he'll get even stronger for their future clash. In his past life, Tathid's legendary fights with the Sword Saint only pushed them both to become absolute monsters on the battlefield. Rifen knows that killing Cyrus right here, right now, could mess all of that up. He declares that Cyrus is the man meant for Tathid to crush, and with that, he just walks away. Cyrus, left stunned and furious, erupts with a wave of aura that startles Sir Lot as he lets out a rage-filled scream. Outside, Tilla greets Rifen, totally relieved to see him. Father Silent cracks a joke saying they've had a truly one-of-a-kind adventure, all thanks to him. The pretty boy priest admits he was expecting a bit of trouble on his pilgrimage, but getting thrown in a dungeon was not on the bingo card. Then he starts chewing Rifen out for risking Cirrus, and an elf girl in the middle of all that chaos. Rifen immediately panics, asking if anyone laid a hand on her, but Cirrus just calmly says the knights were surprisingly well-behaved gentlemen. When they ask him about the relic, Rifen just shrugs, saying his master told him to grab it, but he has no clue what the thing actually does. He keeps the lie super simple so they can just dip and get out of there. Meanwhile, back at the trashed castle, Severus quietly asks Abron if he's for real, if he actually saw an aura user, and one from the Tennis Knight Order of all places. The news spreads like wildfire. USIS overhears people whispering about Russ awakening his aura, and he's seething with jealousy. He can't wrap his head around how the bastard son of some tramp could get the power that the family elders had always wished for him. His own father had always shown a soft spot for Roos, and now those same elders who were always praising USIS are secretly celebrating that the family finally has an aura user. An aura user in the family would launch the tennis household status into the stratosphere. USIS is just boiling with rage, wondering what this all means for his future. Cyrus is on cloud 9, totally convinced that he and Eldrin are the only ones worthy of being called the Sword of Tenesis, and he can't stop laughing. He's absolutely thrilled, thinking that unlocking his aura just changed the entire game. No cap. He's positive it's just a waiting game now, until he smokes that thief and becomes the one true Sword of Tenesis. Then a stone-faced blondie pops up out of nowhere, Loki curious why this loser is in such a good mood, and demands to see his newly awakened aura. When Cyrus proudly flexes his blade aura, Yusu actually calls it beautiful, which gets Russ all hyped up, thinking his big bro is finally giving him some props. But then, plot twist, with zero chill, the Golden Knight brutally stabs Cyrus right in the gut. The blonde dude just ice-cold counterattacks Russ. Yeah, he's definitely not down to share the Sword of Tenesis title. He gives Russ a shove with his sword, and just like that, Russ goes tumbling into the river below. Life is wild, man, because this is the start of a classic hero origin story. You know, the one where the betrayed dude falls into a river, somehow lives, and then pulls up later for some serious payback. The blonde guy's squad asks him what happened, and he spins a whole tale about how Russ ambushed him to steal the Patriarch title. He claims he just fought back in time, and Russ ended up in the river with a nasty wound in his stomach. He figures there's no way Russ could survive that, and even if by some miracle he did, he wouldn't be a threat to Eldred's power anyway. While his buddies are out searching for Russ's body, Ciri asks our hero how he knows Tilla. Our boy explains the whole thing. He says that some dwarves saved him after he nearly drowned in a river, all because of a prophecy from their god Apoth that said he would be their savior. Tilla confirms it, saying he's the one their god sent to save their people, which is why she's helping him out. The elf is completely mind-blown by this. The young saint is curious if dwarves even believe in gods, and he's shocked to learn they even have their own priests. He admits humans never figured a race they saw as slaves would worship a god, and he always thought dwarves followed some kind of evil deity. He mentions that among the Sayer and the 12 gods, 2 of them, Eldia, the goddess of elves, and Apoth, the god of dwarves, aren't really well known. Suddenly, Ciri spots a person drowning in the river. They manage to rescue him, and our hero recognizes the guy immediately. It's Russ. He's bugging out, wondering why he's here, and if this is some kind of sequel to the prophecy. Later, when Russ finally wakes up, it all sinks in. He genuinely believed that if he just got good enough, his brother Yusu would finally acknowledge him. But it's clear now that Yusu never planned on accepting him at all. When asked what happened, our hero fills him in. He tells Russ they spotted him floating down the river, basically half dead, so they pulled him out. They're currently in the Invade Barony. A full 3 days have passed since that whole mess went down at Kelburn Castle. They were about to crash at an inn for a bit. The plan was to get Russ patched up by a physician, but the young saint warned them that his injury was way too severe. He insisted Russ needed to see a real specialist. According to the saint, it's a good thing Russ is an aura user. If he wasn't there, would have been no chance of saving him. Russ thanks them profusely for saving his life. Our hero knows having the future sword saint indebted to them is a massive W, because even if he turns into an enemy later, he probably won't be too eager to kill the people who saved him. Our boy offers him some money to get back home, but Russ explains that returning to his family is not an option. He's been framed as a traitor who attacked the heir. This makes our hero realize what should have happened. Russ was supposed to awaken his aura and then have an official duel with his brother to win the successor title just like in his past life. Feeling completely hopeless, Russ asks if he can join their crew on their journey, saying he needs to repay them. He's also super grateful that the hero helped him awaken his aura and now wants to get even stronger by learning from him. The protagonist tries to brush it off, but Russ isn't having it, insisting it's enough, just knowing the hero is the successor to the martial King Gerard. In our hero's past life, Russ had to travel the entire nation, looking for other aura users to train with. But now that he's a wanted traitor, he can't train that way anymore, which means he's hit a dead end. His only real option is to learn from an aura user from a different country, and our hero just happens to be the one right in front of him. He's low-key freaking out that the Sword Saint Cyrus is now his subordinate. It's not a bad thing to have an old enemy become an ally, but our hero, Alex, and Ellen probably aren't even born yet. Tesron is completely out of the question, so that only leaves the image of Light Jade. But he knows he can't just take Russ in, even if the guy is begging to be his companion. Still, after all that, the hero agrees. He gives Russ permission to travel with them. Meanwhile, Yusu is reporting back to the Sage of Silver, apologizing because he failed his mission. Sage Leston is super disappointed and admits he seriously overestimated Yusu, who keeps on apologizing. Yusu can't help but wonder how insanely powerful the Sage of Silver really is, considering he's only talking to a freaking illusion. Leston regrets ever putting his trust in a half-baked swordsman. He thinks this whole mess is exactly why the Golden Knight got completely overshadowed by the Sword Saint later on. He then gets summoned by Duke Iranad, who calls him out for using a divine symbol, but the Duke seems pretty impressed. Model. Nobody in history has ever awakened their aura at 20, so this dude's production power is absolutely insane. And honestly, he's been a massive help in keeping humanity safe, which is why he got the recommendation to be one of the Sages of Silver. Yeah, even though he's young and doesn't have a ton of experience, the Duke says it's all based on his future potential and adds that there won't be any punishment. It's not like he caused some huge catastrophe with the divine symbol, but my guy really needs to remember his place. First he calls him Leston, but then switches it up and calls him Tesron. The Sages of Silver are basically the guardians of mankind pulling the strings from the shadows, with enough power to literally decide whether an entire nation lives or dies. The only problem is, Leston is still at the absolute bottom of the food chain. He barely scraped by to become a member, and he's still got a long climb ahead. Meanwhile, the Demon King who once put the world on notice has been reincarnated with a body of steel and the cracked mind of a legendary mage, the hero. Now the real question is, who's going to be able to stop the walking nightmare he's about to unleash? Tesron decides he's got to take out the hero before his magic is fully restored. He thinks it's wild that the dude managed to jack Lucius's voice, but even for a Demon King, it shouldn't be easy to get all his old powers back instantly. Turns out Illusion's voice has 4 symbol relics, and according to Jade, those artifacts are the whole reason the Demon King got so OP in the first place. So he's got to get his hands on all 4 of those relics before the hero can. Back with the crew, Russ is totally confused why the hero and his friends are drawing names to see who does chores. He's thinking they could have just made the elf slave handle it, and even asks our MC the same question, who tells him that while the rest of the world sees elves as property, the hero isn't about that life and considers them his precious friends. Russ had heard rumors that the hero's crew was full of some strange people, like some seriously powerful martial artists. But no matter what kind of person the hero is, Russ has already sworn his loyalty until he finally masters the sword. Until that day comes, he'll do literally anything the protagonist asks of him. Later, the hero hops on to try the first level challenge. He's already bored of the same old virtual reality background, so he decides to switch things up a bit. He gets right back to training, smashing the magical tiles that pop up. He starts to struggle a little when the pace picks up, but he just barely manages to clutch the level. Illusion's voice is super efficient, but it's loaded with so many useless features like this artifact thing that was used for education back in the Silver Ages. It lets you choose from all kinds of settings, like a casino, a school, or even a park. The whole thing is packed with music and hot girls cheering you on, and every time you clear a stage, you get rewarded with points. It's a system designed to keep you motivated while you grind levels. He can't help but wonder how much the Silver Age people must have hated studying to cook up something this extra. Or maybe knowledge was just so easy to come by that it wasn't valued. But with this, the hero should be able to get a serious chunk of his magic back, even with Tesron's brainpower. After a bit of travel, they finally roll into Strasbourg. This place is a major military and commercial city where all the northern trade routes meet up. The old man comes through with all the information he requested, which means he can finally look into his body's history. Apparently, he lost his mind at 16 and went completely wild because of some unknown mental illness, demanding that everyone call him Tesron instead of Riefenhart. This pretty much confirms that the Martial King Tesron has been reincarnated into this era. It seems Tesron and the hero have straight up swapped bodies. Our protagonist was not expecting things to be this wild. The intel says he left Delphi's Mage Tower at age 20, and then just fell off the face of the earth. He figures a simple merchant group probably wouldn't be able to dig up any more than that. In his past life, Tesron didn't even become an official mage until his late 20s, and it had nothing to do with his skills. He just couldn't get permission from his higher-ups to leave the tower. Our boy starts wondering how he ever managed to get out. To get more answers, he decides he needs to find a decent bounty hunter from the Tau Bon trade union. The hero announces to the group that they're leaving bright and early tomorrow, planning to tell them their actual destination once they're on the road. Later that night, Ceylon and Russ are talking about how humble the hero is, hiding his true strength. All the while, the hero himself is standing right behind them, wondering if it's really okay to bring the young Saint and Russ to Grand Forge. He finally makes up his mind to tell them where they're really going, but before he drops that bomb, he reveals his true mission. He needs everyone to understand that elves, our boy's got a dream that's kinda wild. He thinks dwarves and orcs shouldn't be slaves, and he wants to build a world where they're all free. He makes it crystal clear that they're not just some mindless beasts. These guys have their own thoughts and feelings, no cap. But he's not stopping there. To make this happen, he's totally cool with making the entire world his enemy. The man has zero chill. Ceylon decides to tag along on his journey, but he's low-key not sold on the dream, thinking it's completely unrealistic. But even he thinks it's messed up that they're all just treated like property. Besides, finding people with this much talent is super rare, and he knows he's got to spread the message of kindness to them. He wants to be the first one in history to really connect with these other species, and the young Saint is ready to go ambush some nobles for the cause. They're going to try and free every single slave, and Russ is all in, even though just swearing loyalty is a massive crime. Our hero tells them to keep this conversation on the down low before announcing their next stop, the Grand Forge. It's home to a temple for a god that the dwarves worship, and once they finally get there, the team immediately gets jumped by a ton of monsters. This place is absolutely crawling with them, which explains why no one has ever made it this far. There's got to be a reason a dwarf would set up a temple here. Suddenly, phantom griffins swoop in to attack, and our boy tells Russ to cover him. He's got to pop his illusion annihilation spell to find the real griffin in the bunch, and the group is getting anxious. They're wondering how much longer they have to keep fighting through this nightmare, and the hero lays it out for them. He says it would normally be a 2-week trip, but they're taking a shortcut that'll get them there in a single day. So the next day, the crew is using Diamond's ruins as their shortcut, all while the elf is giving our hero the side-eye, trying to figure out his real identity. A little later, the hero wants to switch paths, claiming his master explored this rejected route when he was younger. His strange comments are making Ciri super doubtful, but as they reach the Grand Forge, the hero smashes his fist against a wall. Before their eyes, the Temple of All Poth appears, and the group can't believe it. They're just floored by the history of the place. The young Saint is totally mesmerized and asks if they were the ones who broke the seal, and if that's even okay to do. Our boy just plays it cool, telling him he actually destroyed a part of the temple in his past life too, and it wasn't a problem then. That's because All Poth had already sent out a prophecy way ahead of time. Suddenly, dwarves inside charge out to attack the crew. To them, this just looks like a full-blown invasion. The hero realizes there's no way these dwarves will get what's going on, especially since the temple's appearance has completely changed. The dwarves are going ballistic over these humans, and out of concern, Russ is about to charge back, but the hero stops him. He steps up instead, trying to convince them that they aren't enemies. It's a little embarrassing, but he manages to explain that he's their savior, the human man from the Oracle of All Poth. He tells them he's there to meet the great priest Mashallah, and that he was sent here on instructions from the Steel Hammer tribe. Hearing this, the dwarves give them a warm welcome. The Grand Forge is a whole city located 30 meters under the Setterlard Mountains. This giant cave is 2 kilometers wide and 30 to 50 meters tall, with a hot spring river and glowing geothermal stones in the ceiling. These stones, placed about 100 meters apart, provide both heat and light. The dwarves then start explaining the city's whole layout. The whole group is just stunned by their skills. These dwarves are seriously built different. The dwarves explain that the Grand Forge was a ruin from the Silver Age, and they just remodeled the inside. But our protagonist knows the truth. This was a dwarven city even back in the Silver Age, which is obvious since the doors are so low. In other words, during the Silver Age, dwarves were flourishing so much they could build a city like this. That's a feat that would have been impossible if they were actually born to be slaves. The dwarf leader offers them a place to stay and brings them dinner. When they ask what it is, he starts describing the meals. He even mentions the food is especially good for a man's stamina. Right on cue, a female dwarf enters. She informs them that the hero has been summoned to the central tower, where Allpoth's great high priest Marshall and Poth Hammerline welcome him. The sage Tesron nods off and dreams about a legendary battle between the true Demon King, Rigenhart, and a martial king named Tesron who's fighting to free all the other species from the Demon King's nasty curse. The sage wakes up realizing how hard he's been grinding for years. He awakened his aura at age 20 even with his scrawny body. He used that newfound power to basically bully the elders of Delphi's mage tower into giving him official mage status. After that, he started networking with anyone who looked like they'd become powerful in the future. And so our boy officially links up with the Silver Sage, and everything's going exactly as planned. The only problem, he's not going to be able to take down the Demon King. Just rocking aura and fifth circle magic isn't going to cut it. The Demon King is built different because Tesron's original body was just born on another level. Since that king is probably out there looking for his crew and his lost powers, the sage needs some seriously strong warriors on his side. They need a team that'll help him put this Demon King back in his box. As our hero introduces himself to the priest, it makes the priest wonder if they've actually met before. The hero is like, look, this is probably going to sound insane, but we met 10 years in the future. This of course completely throws the priest for a loop. Our boy explains that he's a time traveler. He says he's journeyed across the continent as a legendary mage. Along the way, while trying to hit the god-tier 10th circle, he got tangled up with some otherworldly races. And whoops, he ended up in a massive war against all of humanity. They even called him the Demon King of the Entrees Empire, and he pretty much went to war with the entire continent before he finally bit the dust. He basically tells the priest that believe me or don't, it's your call. But if the priest was really one of his inner circle, and they were super tight, then he definitely would have told our MC about this himself. So, the priest decides to test him. He asks what color his beard is, but our boy Ryfin claps back, saying the priest doesn't even have a beard, and is still rocking the same fake one 30 years later. And that's no cap. He even knows the secret behind the fake beard, that it was blessed by a god named Allpoth. See, in the dwarven otherworld, a massive beard is the ultimate symbol of manliness. You can be bald, but if you don't have a glorious beard, you're basically considered a